morning. I'd like to call to order the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors meeting for December 11th, 2018. Madam Clerk, would you take the roll, please?
Supervisor Cerna?
Here.
Kennedy?
Here.
Frost? Here. Peters?
Here.
And you have a quorum. This meeting of the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel, on the Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Uverse cable systems. The meeting is closed caption and is webcast at sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will be repeated Friday, December 14th at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. A DVD copy is available for checkout from any local library branch. Members of the audience wishing to address the board may fill out a speaker slip and hand it to staff. When the chair calls your name, please come to the podium. Also, please silence your electronic devices at this time.
Thank you. Would everyone stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Okay, for your consent matters, items 1 through 56, I do have a request to hold item 14 till 2 p.m. Approve a resolution for salary plan for unrepresented non-management and management employees. And then you're adopting an ordinance for item 40, amending Chapter 16.81 of Title 16 of the Sacramento County Code, extending temporary reduction of fee rates for certain fee components in the North Vineyard Station fee program. You waived reading on this. You waived reading on this. I have the wrong notes on here, but okay. You're adopting it today.
Okay. I do have individuals who wish to speak on items 6, 11, and 49. So, Mr. Natoli, any questions?
Just a moment. Yeah, let me get settled here. So,
Ms. Frost? No?
I was going to pull item 11, but knowing that we have speakers on 11, I'll wait to see the position on that.
Kennedy, anything? Okay. Yeah. I want to note that I'm recusing myself from item 2, 3, 4, and 10 having to do with business investment. Mr. Natoli?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I do have some comments on item 6, and you're going to pull that already. I did want to, on item 49, if I could, very quickly.
Item 49, you'd be acting as the Sacramento County Water Agency. It's the Hood Storage Tank and Water Treatment Plant Improvement Project. Bids to be received on January 17, 2019.
Great. On this one, I just wanted to thank our staff for their work. I know this has been a work in progress for a number of years now, including the initial acquisition of the land from the Court and Fire District, and then the design and engineering work. We've had water quality issues in the community of Hood for decades, and I know that we've worked to try to improve that. This will not only improve the water quality, but will improve the fire flow and be a real important asset within the community down there. And I know they have a town council that has recently kind of reconvened, and I've heard many comments from folks in the community, positive comments relative to this improvement. It's been long anticipated. I just wanted to thank our staff, Water Resources, and all those that worked on it. And I know folks are looking forward to the improvement this upcoming year. So wanted to add that. Thanks. And then I'll speak on some of the other items when you pull them off the calendar. Thanks.
Okay. You want to call the items?
Yeah. Did you say items 6 and 11? For speakers?
6, 11, and 49.
And 40. Got it. Item 6, approve 3-year labor agreements between the County of Sacramento and the Sacramento Sierra Building and Construction Trades Council, representing the Building Trades Unit, the Sacramento County Attorneys Association representing non-supervisory and supervisory attorney units, the Sacramento County Probation Supervisory Association representing the Supervising Probation Officers Unit, and the Sacramento County Management Association representing the Management and Civil Attorney Units.
Okay, thank you. Joe Kress?
Good morning. Most of you know me. I'm Joe Kress. I am the president of the Sacramento County Attorneys Association. We represent district attorneys, public defenders, Department of Child Support Services in this county. I want to thank you for your hard work for this county. I want to thank you for any efforts that you've made towards our contract. We negotiated this contract over the course of approximately 12 months. We started negotiating in December, so it was a long process. We believe that we reached a fair resolution. I thought that that would put this thing to bed. I have come to learn that the practice of paying county council more than us is continuing, and that is something that I am continuing to object to. Obviously, we negotiate first. That just seems to be the way that it always is. And so we reach a resolution, and so I have no knowledge of what's going to happen with them. And then I find out late last week that they settled their contract for basically what we got, which continues the practice of paying them more than us. I had no reason to think that that disparity would continue. I sent each of you a letter. It was late yesterday. I have an extra copy if anybody needs one. It outlined the history of how this practice started. The practice started when there was a clerical error where some of their attorneys at the level 4 were paid 1% more than they were supposed to get. That created this entitlement to retroactive pay for some of our attorneys. We settled that for an increase going forward, knowing that the county has an aversion to retroactive pay. Rather than simply solve that problem and correct the salary structure for county council, the labor relations agreed to send them right past us and to pay them 1% more than us. And that's a practice that continues to this day. We have objected to that from the beginning. We have given our solution, which I think our solution would be to simply start us at their salary structure and move forward from that. I don't see any significant difference in the work that we do. I have friends over there. I respect them, but I don't see any reason why you would pay them more than you're paying us.
Thank you. Mr. County, thank you.
Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah. I don't know, is Mr. Bonner here? Or?
Yes, he is. Robert?
You can be seated, Mr. Kress.
Good morning.
Morning. Did you want to make any comment on that? I'm sorry, Don, I just saw your name come up.
Yeah.
No, I don't have any comment on it.
I think what we negotiated with them is the proposal that's in front of you, and that spread has been in there. That's been, as Mr. Kress said, for a couple of years. And when we went into negotiations, we knew that spread was there, and we continued it with the proposal that we're bringing forward to you, and what the Attorney Civil, what they ratified shows that too. And Robert is here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Mr. Natoli?
Yeah, I was going to, Mr. Bonner may stand by, but I wanted to ask Joe a question if I could. So if you want to stand by for a second, Bob, I'm going to ask you a question, but I want to ask Joe a question first. So
I think he wants to talk to Mr. Kress.
I want to ask
If you'll
Mr. Kress,
just
but then
step
I want to-
aside for a moment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. So Joe, when you, I assume you were part of the negotiating team at the table for your contract. Was there discussion about this? Again, I'm not getting too deeply into this, but I'm curious. So again, recognizing this has been, something's been in play for years.
There was a request, and the response was that, well, you guys go past them. And my reply to that is, we never go past them. All that happens is we negotiate first. Every time, we negotiate first. So in a sense that we go by them, that's when we settle our contract, we get whatever increases we get. For those brief moments we're by them, then they generally get just what we get, and then they go past us again. So there was no reason for this disparity to have occurred in the first place. Like I said, we do the same work. We discussed it. I asked them to stop with the policy. I had every confidence that the policy would stop. I didn't find out until last week that they got exactly what we got.
Okay, so but there wasn't any. I just want to be clear. There wasn't any agreement about stopping. Obviously, you never negotiate separate contracts. So I just wanted to be clear from your point. So
That is 100% true.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Bonner, if I could. Then, clearly this has been something that's been long-standing. This is, with contracts for a number of years. So what's your take on this? I mean, again, you negotiate contracts separately, recognizing that, and I do have another question regarding the scheme item here as it relates to attorneys and chief deputies, because we received correspondence on that, but I wanted to focus on this point first. So when you're doing that, knowing full well that the negotiating parties for those that are represented by the unit that Joe's a part of are concerned about that, and you're still, you have negotiators negotiating this, and recognizing that this may have some history to it, but it's also history that, engenders some of the concerns that we've heard here this morning.
So I can kind of give you my recap of what has happened since I've been here with Sacramento County. When I arrived here in 2013, the criminal attorneys were actually making more. And as a result of that bargaining cycle, an additional 1% was given to the civil attorneys that moved them ahead. So at the time I arrived, the criminal attorneys were actually ahead, not just from a bargaining perspective of they got raises first, they were actually ahead of the civil attorneys. And during the bargaining cycle of 2013, 2014, an additional 1% was given to the civil attorneys, and that is the issue now in dispute here, is that the civils have now jumped ahead of the criminal, and during this current bargaining cycle, both sides received the same salary and equity adjustment. So it really becomes an issue of going back and forth, one unit over the other unit.
And again, in fact, this probably precedes your coming to the county as well. It seems to me this goes back probably, 15, 18 years ago, at least, where, again, then Chief County Counsel and others that, both in the DA's office and the Public Defender's office represented units, and units may have changed a bit in those that are repped or unrepped, but this has been ongoing, and so it seems to me that we are here where we are today, but it doesn't go away because we do this, and obviously we have negotiated contracts before us. But I do think it's important because as this board enters into contracts, this continues to be obviously an issue, and it can be just as much we could be hearing from the other side depending upon how this went. But where we have basically a difference in recognizing that all those folks have earned their law degrees, they're employed by the county, they have different roles, and they may do civil versus criminal, or whatever the nature of their work is, representing this county and the people we serve. And it seems to me at some juncture there probably needs to be a conversation. And again, I don't think we got into this in much depth, recognizing what you just said, that it continues what was in place, but there continues to be this argument of equity as it relates, and parity, I guess parity more than equity, parity as it relates to attorneys that work for the county, whatever their role is. And again, I'm going to ask you a question when we get done with this particular, on some other attorneys who aren't getting any equity, as I understand it. But it seems to me now, I guess I would just say that, and maybe it pushes this forward, but I think this issue continues to bubble up, not just at contract time, but I know it runs, pretty deep with both, with different elements of our organization, and whether they're in county counsel's office, whether they're in public defender's office, whether they're in the DA's office or child support services, or wherever they might be in this county doing legal work. That's very, very important to our day-to-day operations. So that's all the questions I have at this point. So,
Thank you, Mr. Cerna.
Thank you. So, well, I understand and respect the fact that you got a particular perspective, Robert, based on when you got here, and kind of, I guess, based on what you said just a moment ago, using that as some kind of benchmark. This is kind of structural uncomfortableness for this, for at least for this board member, maybe for my other colleagues as well, where we think we get to the end of negotiations, and then, and it's not just the issue with the PD. I'm hearing from, as Mr. Tully mentioned, others that claim to have an equity issue. And it seems to me that in the interest of avoiding this kind of last-minute difference of opinion or confrontation, however you want to characterize it, why not kind of set the bar all at once for both the civil attorneys, the prosecutors, and the PDs, so that we don't continue to have this moving bar, moving forward?
The answer to that is they reside in different bargaining units.
I understand.
And so the difficulty in bargaining for each unit has its own unique circumstances. And in this case, you're talking about, again, establishing parity. There once was parity between the units as unrep. That has been broken, and This is ultimately a result of the lack of parity between units.
I think Supervisor Cernan, part of what Mr. Bonner is alluding to is they reside in 3 different units. With other units, when we negotiate, most of the same classes are in the same class, so we can deal with it. And that is something that I think when we can work with Labor and County Council, DA, Public Defender's Office, is that with this disparity that comes and goes, is there a better way for us to negotiate? And is there a different unit? I'm just throwing ideas. I'm not trying to presuppose, but could be more of a dialogue that maybe one unit, which has all attorneys, and again, I don't want Joe and company to get upset with me, but I think that's what we need to explore with them. Otherwise, I think you're absolutely right. We'll always be at this spot because one unit is negotiating for their membership. They negotiate what they have, and then we go through all the different attorneys.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So
like the Four Seasons. You can anticipate having this conversation on a fairly regular basis.
I think we'll take this on. I think, Robert, I'll have him and myself work with County Council, DA, Public Defender, Joe, and schema folks to see, is there a better resolution with the attorney classification?
Let me ask this. It's a procedural question. I guess I'm looking at County Council for this one. If there's a will of this board today to send it back relative to the expressed concern that Mr. Kress presented this morning, can we send it back and have you work on how best to achieve parity this time, not kind of talk theoretically about next time?
Well, then when we run into retroactive pay then?
Right. This has been a 12-month process of representative negotiations that have been ratified. And so and with parameters that your negotiators on the county side have been instructed to proceed with. So I would be concerned about not going forward at this time, but instead doing what the CEO proposes.
Well, it's a very uncomfortable place to be. And it's, as I mentioned, it's kind of institutionalized here. So I don't want this to be taken as a throwaway comment. I want to know soon how we're going to fix this and avoid it in the future. Because what you have going on, I understand there's different units, but you have the same profession spread over those 3 units, right? So you have the DAs and the prosecutors going civil, and civil looking the other way, depending on when our labor negotiator arrives on the scene, and then it becomes the condition that we see this morning. So maybe first meeting in the new year or something, we can have a discussion about that, whether it has to be closed or open, I don't know, but I would really like to see something done about this.
Okay, we'll look into it.
Mr. Antoli?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, so while we're on this issue, certainly Mr. Kress raised it, but we all received correspondence from a couple of our chief deputy district attorneys as it relates to the actual equity. This is different than the parity, but and between what's on the non-rep item that's on today's agenda in this consent calendar and obviously the labor agreement, this goes to one of the units, the schema unit, but we, as I understand it, we will have, of the 400 plus or minus attorneys with the county, we will have only 6 or 7 that will not receive the 1% equity. And I get it, you look at, and again, I appreciate Mr. Gill this morning on a conversation about subordinates and such, and you look at the units, but it seems to me that if you have folks, and I think it goes to the issue Mr. Cerna was speaking to, but it's relative, that, every situation is not the same. On the other hand, and I got, without getting too deep into it again, in brief conversation this morning with a couple of those attorneys who are supervising attorneys or assistant chief deputies in the district attorney's office who have a pretty broad span. They're on call. They oversee several units within the framework of the district attorney's office. But every other attorney, either under bargain contract or in the underrepresented, with the exception of 6 or 7 in this county, is going to get an equity. And that needs to be addressed as well. I mean, again, so from top to bottom and bottom to top, and then you have somewhere in between that doesn't get that. Again, recognizing it's bargain, so I don't want to get outside of that. But I think that's problematic. And again, I would just say that's the type of issue we ought to be made apprised of when we're in negotiations. I trust somebody at the table knows that. Maybe you did. We get summaries of that. Those are in closed session as we negotiate contracts. But again, I have some uncomfortableness as well, recognizing we already are, and certainly contracts, we need to honor that. We have people who may take exception to what's in that, but that's an important issue. And so to your point, Mr. Gill, I think that needs to be looked at as well, because it's different than the parity, but it's an equity issue as it relates to 6 or 7 out of 400. Something's not right with that picture.
We'll throw them in the mix.
Okay.
And if I could just dovetail off of that, my understanding is that there's general disagreement on this issue relative to the supervising deputy district attorneys, that whether or not they're in the same unit. I mean, that's kind of the latest news I hear from my chief of staff on this subject. So if we can't even agree that there are attorneys that fall within different units, but they're in the same agency, therein lies another problem. So there seems to be a lot of confusion that is affecting this as well.
Yeah, and Supervisor, and that was the point that I was making, is that these are cut across different bargaining units. I think that's something we should look into and see what we can do about it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Want to read item 11?
Yes. Item 11 is the Sacramento International Airport Runway Pavement Rehabilitation Project bid award to Granite Construction Company.
We have 2 speakers on this item. First is Nick Avdis.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Nick Avdis with the Thomas Law Group on behalf of De Silva Gates Construction. With me this morning is Rich Gates. I appreciate the time to speak to you today. I would ask that we be afforded the full opportunity to be heard, but short of that, we have in our agenda packet, in your agenda packet, information on our protest and of the recommended bid award to Granite Construction. Our protest is based on the multiple errors in the Granite bid. We did have the opportunity to review Granite's response to the issues we raised, as well as County Council's memo to the board. And after review, we do agree that the county does have very broad latitude in exercising its authority today, whether that's in awarding the bid or sending this contract back out for a rebid. You know, that being said, we feel very strongly that the errors in Granite's bid are being trivialized. There are multiple errors, and that the best way to proceed is through a rebid of this contract. You know, correcting bids on an ad hoc basis presents a slippery slope for the county, because where do you draw the line? Where do you allow corrections, and when do you not? If the irregularity didn't benefit Granite in this case, would the board still have held Granite to their bid? I would like to point out in Granite's response to my letter, Granite cites the obviousness of the irregularity in bid item number 28, which is the correct bid amount, according to the more specific bid specification, would be near $32 billion. You know, that's fine, but Granite conveniently omits irregularities in items number 2 and number 26, which would increase Granite's bid by $3.6 million. Is that an obvious mistake in the contract? That's $28.5 million, but would still be within the range of the remaining bids if you were to add the $3.6 million. I think you see where I'm going with this. The public policy concerns is that ad hoc correction of bidder mistake opens up the circumstances that can be fertile grounds for favoritism, which serve to erode the integrity of the bidding process and not in the best interest of the public. I think the irregularity shouldn't be overlooked, and the fix is really simple. You can send it out for a rebid. It can happen quickly. Inconsequential cost of the county, frankly, it's really a cut and paste job. And in a manner that doesn't affect the project schedule and could in all likelihood result in money savings for taxpayers in the form of significantly lower bids. In any event, thank you. I see that my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Roy Brewer?
Thank you and good morning. My name is Roy Brewer. I'm an attorney with the firm of Brewer Lofgren, appearing before you today on behalf of Granite. I have nothing of substance to add to the opinion given to you by County Council or to the letter sent to you by Mr. Murray, General Counsel for Granite Construction. I think both documents thoroughly and methodically address the issue of the discretion that you may exercise to waive obvious errors and to waive inconsequential errors and award the contract to the most responsive and responsible and lowest bidder, which in this case is Granite. The county's own bid specification package and the FAA rules that regulate federal bids Both give you the discretion to overlook or waive obvious errors. We assert that these errors were obvious. The bid packages were submitted on November 8th. Granite acknowledged their error and submitted a letter the very next day to the county correcting those errors. The errors did not, or the corrections rather, did not change the line item price on the 3 items in question, nor did it change the bottom line bid price. So we believe that those errors were in fact inconsequential. So given the discretion and the latitude you have to waive inconsequential and obvious errors, we ask that you abide by the opinion offered by County Council and award the contract to Granite, reject the protest, award the contract to Granite, save the taxpayers something in excess of $800,000, and allow the airport project to commence as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask Mr. Gassaway to come forward and give his explanation?
Good morning. Jeff Gassaway, Interim Director of General Services. We stand by our recommendation to move forward with awarding the bid to Granite Construction. If you have any questions regarding the bid protest, County Council is here to answer your questions. We also have staff from the airport and the design team here to answer any questions you have.
Okay. Mr. Natoli is first.
I just had a question.
Mr. Gassaway? Yeah, go ahead then.
Question for you, Jeff. If staff is still standing behind this, and I have to interpret that as you're kind of treating this as a incidental mistake of some sort on behalf of the lowest bidder in this case, why do we have in our specifications very detailed reference to this exact situation? It seems to me that if it was incidental on its face, that you wouldn't have the need to have very specific directions in the specifications, but yet we do when it comes to which numerical reference versus an alphabetic reference takes precedent here. So that leads me to believe that we've got a structural.
I'm sorry. Wait your turn.
We have a structural interest in making sure that this very incident does not occur. So in the interest of having an even playing field for all bidders, I'd like you to respond to why then do we have this language in here?
Well, I think County Council addressed that in their memo as far as the minor mistake. And the FAA specifications and regulations give us the latitude to go with what we think is the responsive and responsible bid.
I understand the latitude, but this leads me to believe that this has some weight, some import to us in the course of determining whether or not a bid is fair.
Steve, or Dennis, did you want to talk about the specifications?
Steve Cook, project manager on the project. FAA gives us a little latitude because some of this does happen within the specifications to be able to analyze the bid and see that what the number they meant. So it gives it a written number, and then it gives a numeric number, and if it's obviously wrong, then it gives us the option to say the number that they gave us was correct.
But it also specifically says which reference carries the most weight.
It does that in two sections, Section 20 and Section 30. It actually gives you both.
Right.
FAA does that. So we basically saw that it was an obvious mistake, but yet the number that they gave us was correct.
Does that complete your comments on it? Okay. Mr. Natoli?
Yeah, not so much for Steve, just maybe for County Council. Again, as we all have read the materials, both from the appellant and certainly the parties that are being recommended for award. I guess, Robin, I wanted, Diane's here. Diane, just the what is the metric, I guess, when we judge typographical errors? Again, I think obviously looking at this, you can see that, at least in the instance of one of the line items, that would have been $32 billion. Well, obviously that's not, that's not a real number. But I think kind of to what Supervisor Cerna was asking, just so we have to make a judgment. Obviously, you've examined it, and I appreciated the information you brought forward in your examination of it. But again, you've been doing this for a long time. So when we get situations like this, what's that dividing line, I guess, between typographical, incidental, inconsequential, and something that would be that might rise to the occasion? And that's not, obviously, your recommendation here is to award the bid to Granite, but in light of what's before us, maybe you could just take a moment and kind of, because you examine these fairly frequently. So.
Diane McElhern, Deputy County Counsel. Yeah. I think the most important thing to remember here is to apply a degree of reasonableness to bids. This is such an obvious, inconsequential error. The FAA general specifications actually allow us, and this is in my opinion, Section 20.07 does say that in the case of a conflict between words and numerals, the words, unless obviously incorrect, shall govern. And I think here is a very classic case of where the words are obviously incorrect. Granite had correct bid numbers written numerically. They immediately corrected their mistake. They stood by their bid numbers. They stood by the total bid. And so we also have our own specifications that allow us to waive technical errors. And we also have the bid notice that goes out that says the county can waive basic irregularities.
So does this fall in the category of technical error? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. And I think the one thing you did point out that to the point that was made about rebidding this, but that there is a difference of several $100,000. That's not the governing factor, but there is
quite a bit of difference, over $800,000. And I also need to point out that if this is delayed, there is a very good chance we will lose our FAA funding for this project. There's also a more than 3-month delay in getting this project going. And finally, there is also an issue of when you rebid a project, you often have bids that come in much higher than the original bids. So in our office's opinion, there is really no reason to rebid this project.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yeah, I just want to ask about your statement about the fact that we stand a good chance of losing FAA dollars. What's that comment based upon?
It's based upon what I have been told by airport design staff, and we can have Steve Cook address that issue.
Could I, Madam Chair? I'd like to have an answer to that question.
Yeah, FAA provides funding annually. I think they have $24 million docked for this project this year. It's on an annual basis, first come, first serve. If it does not get spent, it goes away.
And that's a calendar year?
It's calendar year. So what happens is the airport would have to go back out and ask for that money. If it's not there, they don't get it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other? Mr. Cerna?
Yeah, thank you. No question for you. Well, I think there's a big difference of opinion, at least the way I understand it, in terms of the time sensitivity to this. It's the first I've ever heard. It sounds like Supervisor Kennedy, based on his question, maybe the first time he's heard that there's this sensitivity. We heard from Mr. Brewer stress the fact that this will save taxpayers $800,000 if we go with staff's recommendation. But I think the point that Mr. Abdus made earlier, that if we rebid this and go back out, the county, the taxpayers of the county stand to actually save more with a new round of bidding and the prospect of an even lower bid. So I'd like to move that we reject staff's recommendation and we rebid this project.
Hearing no second.
I'll second.
Oh, well. Okay, I am not going to vote for this based on conversations with various other departments who are making improvements in roads, runways, not runways, but costs going up so fast that we can't barely keep up with them given the time between the bid and the actual construction. So I think the cost question is really important. Please vote.
And the motion fails.
Okay, moving to item 49.
Item 49, you're acting as Sacramento County Water Agency, Hood Storage Tank and Water Treatment Plant Improvement Project, bids to be received January 17, 2019.
Mario Marino.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, Don.
Morning, Mark.
We're doing well, thank you. How about you?
My name is Mario Moreno, and I'm the chairperson for Hood Community Council. And on behalf of the residents of the historic Delta community of Hood, we want to say thank you so much for all your assistance, specifically Don Natoli's office and his whole staff, water resources. We really appreciate what's happening. We look forward to ribbon cutting and some really good water. But anyway, we appreciate all your efforts. And I just, on behalf of the residents, just want to say thank you. Don, we'll have you come on out and taste some good water.
Right.
It's all good in Hood. Come on out.
Okay.
I'll drink along with you.
All right. Thanks for taking the time to come in.
Thanks, Mario. Thanks for his leadership as well. Appreciate it. Great.
Okay. I don't have any other comments on consent, so we need a motion.
Move approval.
Chair will second.
Second for the consent calendar.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Candidate.
I just want to, just briefly, I won't go through them all, and we don't need to read them. I just want to really commend staff and all of the work that went into, there's numerous items on here that have to do with Mental Health Services Act, that have to do with homelessness. I think that this continues to show the county's commitment to really solving this terrible human crisis, both mental illness and homelessness. And this, it may be on the consent calendar, but that does not diminish it as far as it's important to Sacramento County and the people of Sacramento County. So thank you to your staff, Bruce. Thank you, Uma Zajkowski. This is a legacy moment as you leave county service. Cindy, I don't want to name people because I'm going to miss somebody, but really, for anybody who thinks that, we as a board and our county staff aren't working together with other jurisdictions to really do something about this problem, you need to take a look at this agenda, because this shows our money's where our mouth is, our priorities are where our pocketbook is, and is going to do a lot to help a lot of lives. So thank you.
What a nice thing to say. Thank you. I'm going to change my second. Mr. Natoli had seconded it just before me. Okay, so please vote.
Unanimous vote, and let the record reflect that this is with the exception of item, we have a recusal on item 2, 3, 4, and 10, and then item number 11 also has a separate vote, and we're holding item 14.
Thank you. Okay, next item, please.
All righty. Item 57 is the presentation of resolution proclaiming Marcellus Bell as champion of those in need.
Ann Edwards is making this presentation. Come forward.
Good morning. Ann Edwards, Department of Human Assistance, and I'm happy to introduce Mr. Marcellus Bell, who is here with us today. Is there a resolution up there? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So this is one of those moments that I am really happy to be here. We are often up here tackling very difficult subjects, as we just did earlier this morning. And so I'm very, very pleased to talk about the efforts of Marcellus Bell and his heroic acts. On September 2nd of 2008, this young man, who has had a number of challenges in his life, selflessly entered a motel that was engulfed in flames. Unbeknownst to Mr. Bell, the occupant of the room started the fire to try and take her own life. His quick and heroic actions not only saved a life, but saved significant property damage as well. DHA requested that the board recognize Mr. Bell because his action and his progress in the flexible supported rehousing program are a testament to the power of whatever it takes. We are proud to proclaim Mr. Bell as a champion for those in need, and we salute his selflessness. He's done an amazing job in the program. He clearly did not think of himself as he entered that burning building and saved a life. So congratulations, Mr. Bell.
Would you care to make a comment, Mr. Bell? You don't have to.
I'd like to say thank you to my families for letting me be here. I'd like to thank all y'all for this award.
Okay, well, thank you for your incredible heroic act.
Thank you for your
I
courage.
hope life shares its blessings on you.
Thank you.
Don't get away that easy.
Can we get the team? Yeah.
I don't think this item, next item's not been agendized properly. I think we'll have to come back next month. Right, Paula?
Clerk of the Board, CEO, this is Florence Evans, Clerk of the Board. I meant Board of Supervisors. So
You have to introduce the item first, Madam
Yes,
Clerk.
I know, it's a little weird. I'm doing it from the podium. This is item 58. This is a presentation of resolution honoring Paula Walton on the occasion of her retirement. And I just have a couple of words because I'd like to give a little highlight about Miss Paula. So first, I just want to say I know for Paula and for myself and on behalf of the clerk staff and probably board staff as well, it's really bittersweet and it's kind of an emotional thing. We're really happy for Paula in this new season of her life, but we're also very sad about her departure. So Paula wears many hats in the clerk office. In fact, we have an inside joke every Monday before a board meeting, and the joke is, so who's going downstairs? And it's not because I don't like clerking, and it's not that I don't want to have all the nerves go up in the air over the weekend, but it's really because it's about having a plan B and also for training and development of our staff. So even though we joke about it and we laugh, I know that I can always count on Paula to handle the responsibility under stress. So some other things. If you're reading an action summary, Paula compiled it. If you've read agendas or received board packages, Paula compiled it and put your packet together. And I do know this one thing, she's not going to miss addendums and she's not going to miss renumbering board packets. If you've ever seen the board staff or the clerk staff color coordinated, take a guess. Paula's the inspiration behind keeping things lively and fun in our office. If you notice, I think we're all wearing red. Some of us are wearing red, and if you can stand up for the clerk's office, they're wearing red as well. It's the season. So also, if you've ever dropped off a wrap gift for a child right about this time, guess what? Paula's the department coordinator of the Gifts from the Heart, and she works with Tammy over in Department of Health Services very closely with this. In fact, here's some other highlights about Paula. She's our safety coordinator, she's our Giving Campaign co-chair. She's also the Rancho Cordova CPAC clerk. She's the former Freeport Water Authority clerk. She also assists DTEC when they're doing a GenNet training for the countywide staff. And most importantly, she's my backup. And here's some history. I won't go over the resolution in detail verbatim, but here's some history about her 30 years of service. She started here as a temp in 1988 with the assessor and quickly became permanent thereafter. She promoted to typist clerk and then was reallocated to an office assistant 2 at the county exec's office. And then she promoted to the account clerk 2 with the Department of Finance, and then she was promoted to senior office assistant with water resources, and then subsequently promoted to an office specialist 2, and then she finally transferred over to the clerk of the board's office in July of 2010. So I'm only going to read this one whereas for you because I think it's important to note some of the things that you don't know about Paula. Whereas her work experience with the county expands from serving in numerous capacities, performing the duties of complex clerical assignments, processing payroll, and assisting employees with human resources needs, providing the public with information and assistance on municipal matters, and preparing agendas and action summaries for the Board of Supervisors and Freeport Regional Water Authority, including co-facilitating countywide training, while maintaining an excellent employment history with the county. Paula has also worked part-time at the Arco Arena, now Golden One, for 17 years. She's also sold Mary Kay for 14 years, and she drives for Lyft and Uber for now a little more than 2 years, while raising her 2 sons, becoming a proud grandparent of 2 grandsons, and often caring for a host of nieces and nephews and family members throughout the years. Paula has also served in the ministry, singing for more than 7 years with the Sacramento Metropolitan Chapter of the Gospel Music Workshop of America. Please join me in honoring Paula Walton on the occasion of her retirement.
Well, I know good morning.
Good morning.
I know I shocked a lot of people by this news, especially one of my good girlfriends, because I've been talking to her about it. We've been going back and forth, and I got to the point where I said, I better stop saying I'm going to retire because my dates kept changing. So one day I came to work, and I just found myself walking over to the retirement office, and I signed my papers. And I had to laugh. I had to laugh at myself because I did sign the papers. And then when I told everybody, they're like, no. And I'm like, yes, this is it. This is it. But, you know, it's, like Flo said, it's bittersweet. I'm happy and I'm sad, but I think this is a new chapter for me in my life. That I'm going to take on. I just want to thank everybody for all the kind words that they have given me when I did tell them that I was going to retire. Everybody has been very nice and gracious, and I appreciate everything. In my 30, I can't believe it's been 30 years. When I first started with the county, I sat right outside, and I still sit right outside of those benches out there and just reflect on my 30 years here in the county of Sacramento. But also, I want to thank Ms. Flo here because, yes, she's giving me the tools and the training to perform my job here. And yes, our inside joke, I'm going to miss that because on Mondays we always say, well, who's going to go downstairs? You know, we have to prepare, and we laugh about that. So, and that is not easy sitting right there. So, you know, that is not an easy task right there. I want to thank, you know, all my coworkers in the office. I'm going to miss everybody, 2 in particular, but those 2, I know I will see them outside of the office because there's activities that I do that involve them as well. But in closing, you know, it's been great here working for the county for these 30 years. You know, I'm going to miss all my new friends that I made. I'm going to miss all the old friends. But I tell everybody it's not goodbye. It's just I'll see you around. I'll still be around the county. So I told Flo to call me if, you know, she ever needs a volunteer up at the front. I'll sit at the front desk, you know, so that'll be my volunteer work that I would do. But, you know, this decision that I made, it was the best for me and my family. So, and that's why I did what I did. So thank you all very much. I appreciate this. I appreciate this resolution. I'm going to hang it proudly in my house. I'll show it all to all my friends and my family. And again, thank you so much.
If you'll wait just a minute, several people have comments they'd like to make. Thank you. Mr. Cerna?
Thank you. So first I want to congratulate you, Paul, on your, sounds like it was a soul-searching decision to finally retire from the county after 3 decades of service. And I just want to make clear that you understand that, and this goes for all of our support staff upstairs, all of Flo's staff, that we learn a great deal from you. I mean, I think sometimes there's an artificial distinction in the minds of some that, you know, the elected officials are somehow different in many respects than the public servants that we have the honor to work with. But I actually take nuggets of wisdom try to at least, from everyone I have a chance to work closely with, and then certainly you're one of those people, and I consider you not just a coworker, but a dear friend. And of course, when you posted on social media that this is the decision you're going to make, my reply was no, with about 10 O's with an exclamation point, because you know, you're a valuable part of this team. You don't need me to tell you that. I think everyone understands just how valued you are, and certainly got to know you personally as well. We've had a chance to do some charitable walks together, and raise money for good causes, and that's going to be missed as well. So I just want you to know that I consider you someone very special, and while I selfishly don't want to see you leave, I can understand that after three decades of service, you may want to focus on other things in your life, and I wish you well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Frost?
Paula, let's see. One thing I've noticed about you and all of the clerks is that what you do is pretty, everything revolves around what you do. You kind of set the stage for all of us, and it's critically important. Sometimes if you don't get it right, then the issue doesn't get heard, and it's put off, and it can cost money. And so there's pressure. And I want you to know that those of us that work in the district offices really appreciate that you work so hard to get it right. And over time, I just want you to know I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss those great big hugs. They feel like coming home. And I want you to know that my staff in District 4 have also, from time to time, expressed what a great job you've done as a clerk. And so, from all of us, thank you for all the hard work, sometimes under pressure or criticism, for the great employee-giving contributions that you made. And I really hope you have a great, happy, busy retirement, and I guess maybe I'll see you at some of those SCRS luncheons.
Oh, yeah.
They have them every now and then, and we periodically go.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Best of luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Kennedy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think what I will miss about Paula is what we all know about Paula the most, and that's the smile. I don't think I've ever seen you not smiling. And now I feel terribly guilty because I hear how much you hated the addendums, and we're all guilty of that. And, you know, we throw an addendum at you and we think, no big deal, it'll be in the, but to you, but you never let us see you sweat. And you have shown great grace in the work that you have done, your commitment to the community. I remember one of the first interactions we had was when I admitted at a meeting that I take Uber, and you scolded me and gave me a free Lyft voucher. And so that's why today I'm here wearing the only piece of red that I own except for a 49ers jersey. So, I wish you the very best, and thank you for everything that you did for our office, but also for everything you've done for the county.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Natoli.
Yeah. I would just follow on to certainly ditto what others have said here, Paula, but again, I recall obviously when you worked on Water Resources and answered the phone over there, and over the years I've had a chance to engage with you at different parts of your career and service with the county. I would just add that, as has been noted here, that the clerk of the Board of Supervisors certainly has responsibilities would be assumed by those who may not be familiar with it, but there's a lot of intermovings and a lot of responsibilities to departments, to inquiries from the public, and certainly from supervisors' offices. And I think that your approach obviously has been one where you take your job seriously, but you also recognize that the camaraderie and the mutual support that's provided within the office structure is very important to your day-to-day tasks, but also of the functionality of an organization. And I think that comes with obviously the experience that you bring over your years in serving in different capacities, but also I think it's part of who you are. And I think, as it's been said here numerous times, and certainly summarized in some of what Flo said, I think your commitment to public service has been one where obviously you've been a good, attentive to the tasks that were assigned, but also have gone above and beyond in many respects. And so with all that being said, I would just offer congratulations to you. You bring a warmth and a joy to the workplace, but obviously I'm sure to anywhere you're present with your family, with friends, both in and outside of work. And that serves you well, and I think it inspires others. So many blessings to you, certainly in retirement. And again, I'm sure this won't be the last time that all of us will see you in certain one context or the other, but you've been a good public servant, and certainly very deserving of a very fulfilling retirement. So congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
With all those nice things, did we talk you into changing your mind?
No, not really.
Well, I agree with everything everyone said, and I think the things I'll miss the most about you are you're always cheerful. Your smile is so contagious. It brightens everyone's day. So hope that continues for you in your private life, and we wish you well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Madam Chair, we'd like to take a picture.
I'll wait for the ladies in red.
Where's the rest? Thank you. Thank you.
And you won't have to worry anymore about where you're going to be on Tuesday mornings anymore, so somebody else will be downstairs, Paula. So.
Okay, item 59 is the annual reports for the County of Sacramento Development Impact Fee Programs for the fiscal year ending in June 30th, 2018.
Good morning, I'm Bob Davison. I'm the Division Chief of the County Engineering Division, and I have a short presentation on the annual reports. So these annual reports that are for review today are for certain County of Sacramento Development Impact Fee reports for the activity during fiscal year 17-18. And these are the impact fees that are specifically administered by the Special District Section of the County Engineering Division. And the annual reports that are included in this item are plan area fee programs for the Vineyard, Antelope, North Vineyard Station, and Mather developments. Also, the countywide library impact fee. 8 recreation and park district fees that are approved by the county board, but are those district's fee programs, and the Cosumnes Community Services District fire fee. So these reports are here because the government code requires that in the Mitigation Fee Act that this information be made available as an annual report to the public by the end of the calendar year for the preceding fiscal year. Included in these reports are the amount of fees that are collected during the fiscal year, interest earned to identify the improvements and amounts that the fees were spent on, also improvements that are funds have been collected for but are not complete, and also the beginning and ending balances of those programs and various other information. So with that, I'm certainly not going to go through all of these annual reports in painstaking detail, but I will point out a few highlights from some of those programs. The Vineyard Fee Program, expenditures were spent during the fiscal year on the Elk Grove Florin bridge replacement and road widening from Florin to Gerber Road. That project actually will begin construction during this fiscal year. Also, $3.6 million has been spent from the Vineyard Fee Park programs on the Pat O'Brien Community Center, which is under construction and almost complete. The Antelope Fee Program, there hasn't been much activity, but of course the board approved the update to the fee program previously this year, and we expect a lot of activity in this program because the Barrett Ranch development is about ready to take off. The North Vineyard Station and Vineyard reports show that the interfund loan that the Vineyard Fee Program made to the North Vineyard Fee Program several years ago as part of paying for the Freeport Regional Water Authority's construction of Gerber Road improvements, that interfund loan has been repaid, and so both annual reports for North Vineyard Station and Vineyard show the repayment of that interfund borrowing. Also, the North Vineyard Station report shows that the Don and Brenda Natoli Park, much anticipated park for the North Vineyard Station area, is under construction. And the 8 Recreation and Park District annual reports show the various improvements that are funded by those 8 park districts. And that's the end of my presentation, and then I can certainly answer any questions that you might have on these reports.
Yes, Supervisor Natoli.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Kennedy. A couple of things, Bob. You could have left that last part out about the park, but anyway. On the Mather Public Facilities Financing Plan development fee, pages 18 of 67, we transfer money over to administer. You have there's 2 components to this, right? There's an administration development fee, and then there's the roadway development fee. And so are we moving money over? Because we basically collected $26,000 and spent $19,000 on administration. So we're spending nearly equal to what, obviously there's more than just collecting a fee, but is that correct? Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, you read that correctly, and that's based upon the there hasn't been much recent development in that program, and so the administration fee program has run a little bit dry. The fees are authorized to fund that administration. But also the low balances, we should remember that significant improvements were funded by the Mather Fee Program in recent years, like the Fulmoyer project and the Zinfandel extension. So that's certainly, these reports are explaining that.
So with the fund balance that we end the year with, almost $564,000, because it doesn't show any public improvement project title, it doesn't show. So what's on our agenda to expend that money on? What improvement? Obviously, there are continued improvements out there. As we see other development, more dollars will flow. I guess I just found that with the blank there. What is it we're anticipating doing? We're just not going to sit in the money and collect interest. We're going to do something with it, right?
So that money certainly is collected for those major improvements. We work closely with economic development, and actually, as I'm standing here, I don't know the next improvement to be funded, but I'll be happy to go talk to economic development and report maybe.
Well, maybe we can roll this in because we're going to have a major workshop right after first of the year, Mr. Gill, right?
That's correct.
So I think it would be good to know because we have different strategies, so it's not important to have the answer today as much as I think to roll that into, again, it's not a large sum of money, but it certainly could fund some improvement. It may very well be dedicated towards that. Then if I could just shift real quickly to one other segment of it, and that's the page 28 of 67, the countywide library facilities fee impact program. So we're sitting with a fund balance of just a little over $2 million. Obviously collected countywide. There's a library facilities plan. $2 million doesn't buy a library in this day and age, but I guess I'm curious as to where we are with that because again, it doesn't show a list of projects. And so I think these reports, again, and maybe you always reference something else with these, you go to the particular district and or to some other plan. But I think from the standpoint of public understanding that it would be good to know, it says see table below, well, the table is blank. So I think there needs to be some understanding that there is a priority list or some cross-referencing, Bob, if possible, as to, what's in line for potential use of those fees. And obviously there are, several libraries that either need to be constructed over time with development and in specific areas of the county. So I guess I don't know if there's any other answer you might have to that, but again, this is another one that has a blank on it. So
I know that there have been recent discussions regarding potential improvements to be funded by this program. In order for the fees to be used for a program, I believe it's first required that the library master plan be updated to include those projected expenditures. So at this point, that hasn't happened, and so there are no improvements that we can report on that are proposed to be funded by the fees. But there certainly is a process in place for that to happen.
But the library master plan is still valid, whether it needs to be updated or not. So there was, whether that's where the money would ultimately be applied to in a revisiting of that. But that doesn't make the library master plan invalid.
That's correct, Supervisor Natoli. I think what Bob's getting at is in this process is to the library master plan, into the CIP, and then we identify. So those are the steps that he's alluding to that we're going through at this point.
Okay, so
it just happens, your comment, we take it, that we should have had something in there, but we'll fix that going in the future.
Okay, all right, very good. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, any other questions? All right, I believe that this does not take a vote. Is that correct, Council? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Item 60 is a retroactive authorization for district attorney to accept $210,000 upon expiration of Motel 6 Memorandum of Understanding for the Public Safety and Community Improvement Trust Fund for disbursement to local nonprofit organizations.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Emery.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Start anytime.
I just want to take a few minutes.
Okay. If you'll just, thank you. If you can go ahead. Go ahead.
Good morning. It's a good day to be the District Attorney of Sacramento County, particularly in light of what we're about to present to you. I wanted to just take a little bit of your time this morning to talk about a couple things. One is to celebrate the power of collaboration and innovation, and also to celebrate promoting positive change within our community. And that really is the essence of what has come out of our MOU with Motel 6. So I just wanted to give you, as members of Representatives of our county, a snapshot of how we got here with this MOU with M6 and how we've been able to successfully terminate it, and really what we're doing on behalf of this community as a collaboration. And many of you know this, but I just want to kind of explain to you how we got here. And you may know that back in 2015, really in the early part of 2015, when I had just literally started my first beginning of my first term, our community prosecution unit within the district attorney's office became aware that we had some significant criminal activity, nuisance activity at several Motel 6s throughout Sacramento County, which we all know at one in particular in Arden was in the culmination of the shooting death of Deputy Danny Oliver. Our community prosecution unit, which, and I want to give special kudos to those members today, realized that this was a county-wide problem. It was not just in the unincorporated, but it also existed within the city of Sacramento, as also well in the city of Rancho Cordova. Through our community prosecution program, we were able to identify that over 5,300 calls for service had been generated from various Motel 6s throughout our county. And we knew that was an extraordinary amount of resources being dedicated. It was also extraordinary amount of nuisance activities, whether it be drug trafficking or drug activity, human trafficking, those types of things that we saw occurring. So at that time, in early 2015, our office started working with our law enforcement partners, so SAC PD, Rancho Cordova, and the Sheriff's Department, as well as the city attorney from Sacramento, as the city attorney from Rancho Cordova. And before I proceed with what the issues were, I just want to give a special shout out to our office, community prosecution team, and some of those members, obviously led by Natalia Luna, Ron Lithicum, Joy Smiley, Hillary Bagley Franzoya, Rochelle Beardsley, Shauna Franklin, Kevin Higgins, Leslie Kolb, and Sonia Satchel. Many of those folks are here today. I also want to give credit to the city of Sacramento, Gustavo Martinez, who I think I see Gus here, as well as Kate Cook from the Rancho Cordova City Attorney's Office, as well as obviously our law enforcement partners. So we started in 2015 with this issue, and I probably will never forget the day that we had a meeting. And we sent a letter in July of 2015 to Motel 6, to their corporate headquarters. I'm never going to forget that meeting because it was not only well attended, but when I asked the CEO of M6, which is obviously a very large corporation, if he'd ever had a problem of this magnitude in one jurisdiction where a DA's office got involved, his answer was never. And so we knew that this was a historic opportunity for us as an office, as a community, as a county, to really change some behavior within our county and try to do something creatively short of actually prosecuting Motel 6. And so we found from those meetings that they were interested in not only working together, but to abate their nuisances, and they also, obviously, we created an MOU, which was signed back then. So what did the basics of the MOU call for? Which are something that I think have become the model for how we oftentimes want our business community to practice their business. So we essentially used a template of said, here's what's going to happen if you fail to comply with this MOU. The last thing we want to do is to end up in court, which in fact we did not have to do. So we wanted them to reduce crime, we wanted them to improve their safety at their motels, and we wanted to also improve their hotel conditions. So the basics of the MOU included that they would change their registration process, that they would require identification, actually some kind of official identification. We asked them to engage in what we call CPTED, which many of you may know. It stands for Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design, which I never knew about before I became the DA. We asked them to increase security, which had a tremendous and significant impact on their hotels in a very immediate fashion. That was not something that was inexpensive for them to do, but it was something that they stepped up very quickly to do. They improved their lighting, they trained their employees, and as a result of the MOU, we had quarterly meetings with their staff. Oftentimes, they flew out from Texas or back east to meet with us, as well as law enforcement. And a big part of this MOU that we all felt was very important was we wanted M6 to give back to this community to help kind of repair some of the issues that we saw happening. And we made it very clear at the outset that we wanted three things to happen. We wanted reinvestment in nonprofits that provide services for domestic violence, human trafficking, as well as youth intervention. And so over the 5 years, that reinvestment in our community would total $750,000. While I've been the DA for only 4 years, I'm not sure I've ever seen of any kind of MOU of that magnitude, not just in this county really, but this is a very significant amount of reinvestment. While the MOU was a 5-year term, we also gave them what we often called a day-for-day credit. So if they complied with the MOU, they would be entitled to terminate that MOU early. And that's what we're here today to do. So what did we do in 2016? Well, we gave, to be honest with you, we're not usually in the business of giving out money as a DA's office. So it was,
Yeah, we're aware.
it was a good day.
Usually goes the other way.
I missed it. What happened? They want more?
Yeah, you're usually asking for it, so.
So in 2016, we gave, I think it was a number of different nonprofits, which I'm going to go over just briefly. $270,000 was invested into the Sacramento County Office Public Safety and Community Improvement Fund. And these are the nonprofits that we gave back in 2016. Community for Peace, and I know Elaine is here, Weave, I know Beth is here, St. John Shelter, Michelle Steve, Another Choice, Another Chance, City of Refuge, My Sister's House, Opening Doors, Cash, Chicks in Crisis. And then Youth Intervention, Youth Services, Always Knocking, Rancho Cordova PAL, Sacramento Police Foundation, Wind Youth Services, Reimagine Mac Road, Folsom Cordova Community Partnership, La Familia Counseling Center. And we also established a series of scholarships in memory of Sheriff's Deputy Danny Oliver through Grant High School. And I believe we were able to give out 5 of those scholarships that year. And then in 2017, we had another $270,000 invested into this improvement fund. And that year cycle, in the area of domestic violence and human trafficking, we gave a substantial award to Family Justice Center, and we also gave money to City of Refuge. And I do know that some folks from FJC are here as well. And then in the area of youth services in 2017, again, Always Knocking, Rancho Cordova PAL, Police Athletic League, Reimagine Mac Road, Reading Partners, which is a huge fan of mine, Robert's Family Development, and La Familia as well. And so now we get to 2018, and that's really why we're here today, is to announce our final disbursement of the funds deposited by Motel 6. And this year we want to recognize 16 local nonprofits, again, in those 3 areas. And I'd ask that, I'm going to do it by group, just to save us a little bit of time. So in the area of domestic violence, this year's recipients, and I'll ask the representatives to come forward. We have, I believe, Rachel Rios from La Familia, Nilda Valmoras from My Sister's House, and from FJC we have Faith, Joyce, Tony, and I think Paul Durenberger's here. I'd ask, we have certificates for them today, but they've also been awarded a certain amount of funds to help their nonprofits as well. So with that, I'd like to present those organizations: La Familia, My Sister's House, Sacramento FJC, and Weave. Did I count on Beth there? Sorry about that. To come forward, and I will give them their certificates. All right, make sure I get these right. Okay, hold on.
Ms. Schubert, with
I
that,
got you here, Beth. This is for Weave. Congratulations. Thank you very much for all your great work. Rachel, how are you? How are you doing? Nice to see you. Thank you. Thanks for coming. And then we have Nilda. Hi, Nilda. Thank you. There you go. Thank you very much. You're welcome. And then FJC, we got Faith and her posse here.
Thank you so much.
All right, there you go. All right, thank you guys very much. Okay. Oh, picture. Okay.
yeah. Ms. Schubert, the
Yes, ma'am.
best way to take a picture with that many people is to stand down here in the well.
In the well.
Yeah.
We have permission to come in the well.
Yeah. Yes. Wave my magic wand.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. And one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay, so then in the area of human trafficking, we have Community for Peace, which is Elaine Whitefeather. Asian Resources is Ms. Bermudez. The Operations Director. Chicks in Crisis is Inez Whitlow. City Refuge is Lauren and Rochelle Ditmore. And from Cash, we have Terry Galpin.
Come on down.
Come on down. Are you from ARI? Oh, sorry. How do you pronounce your first name? Jesse. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Where's your cousin? Where's my friend? Oh, Lauren. Oh, there you are. In the same place.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, guys.
And then, obviously, lastly but not least, I want to just invite up our youth service nonprofits. And this year, I just want to, most of these are known to you. I'm sure they are. But this year's recipients are Always Knocking, Neighborhood Wellness Foundation, which is Brother to Brother, Rancho Cordova Police Athletic League, Reading Partners, Roberts Family Development, Sacramento Police Foundation, and Sacramento Sheriff's Department. So I'd ask all of them to come up and receive their certificates. Oh my God, you guys are all here. That's awesome. How you doing, Emery? You guys are Sarah here? Hi. How are you? Oh my God, we got brother to brother in the house, let's be clear. Okay, where's Mervyn? Okay, where's Greg King? Don't, Greg, you're here, just so you know. There you go.
Good to see you.
Brother, here you go. I've got Eric Manis from the Sheriff's Department and Chief Pittman from Rancho Cordova. Thank you. Where's Robert's Family Development?
You're going to have to back up a little bit.
All the way in.
To get to the bigger space.
All the way in.
And Sheriff, thank you. Wow, what a nice little. We're just going to need a bigger.
Yeah, you guys are gonna have to squeeze all the way in.
I will say this just really quickly about Brother to Brother. They are new to our allotment, and I am so proud that they are part of our allotment this year because they do incredible work, really, as many as, and again, for like folks like Greg King, just every day in the community. So just thank you all for all the work you're doing.
So I got 4 this time, okay? So ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Someone had to throw a peace sign up. I like it. I called you out. I'm sorry. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Do we still have that PowerPoint? Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming. Thank you. Oh,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Mr. Kinsey, thanks for coming, buddy. Okay, so based upon the completion of the MOU, Motel 6 did in fact invest that $210,000 as the completion of the MOU. I did sign the termination agreement this morning. As you know, these are the groups that are going to receive it this year. And then just lastly, I just want to again say it's extraordinary that so much money was invested in this community. It was really something that started out as a negative event, turned into a very positive. And just some of the things that we've recognized and realized by the termination of this MOU. It's a demonstration of the success of working together, of using really what I call a non-traditional approach. And so some of the things that have come out of this MOU, obviously the calls for service have reduced significantly, which is not just good for the hotel, but good for the community, it's good for law enforcement. The neighboring communities seem to be very happy. Some businesses have been able to expand. We've developed a very positive relationship between M6 and law enforcement, as well as our office. It didn't start that way, but it definitely ended that way. We have seen and done multiple trainings for M6 on some of the things that they should be looking for to help us reduce crime and improve public safety. And the fact that M6 has now become part of the local hotel association has been very positive for us. We've even seen this in our police reports. Don't bother going to M6 anymore, because they know that they have cleaned up their act and that it's not worth individuals going there to engage in criminal activity. I think one of the best things that we've seen come out of this is the fact that Motel 6 really has, and I give them a lot of credit, become the nationwide trainer for other hotels on human trafficking, how to detect it, how to see it, how to report it, and how to prevent it. And I really give them a lot of credit. They asked for our input. They asked for the input of experts in the area of human trafficking, and they've done what they said they were going to do. I also think it's a demonstration of their commitment to this community that they are now on the board of the Family Justice Center. And really the commitment to this community has been extraordinary. So without hesitation, I know that part of that is not just their actual corporate structure, but I also give credit to Stan Van Vleck, who was their attorney, and he felt very strongly that he wanted them to be a partner in this community and to resolve their issues. And so I really thank them tremendously. And so just lastly, I just give, again, a shout out to our DA's Community Prosecution Unit, the City Attorney's Office in Sacramento, the Rancho Cordova City Attorney's Office, and our law enforcement partners. And this was really an extraordinary example of collaboration where we promote positive change in our community. And with that, I thank you. If you have any questions, I
Mr.
try to
Tully
answer
has a
them.
question.
Yeah, not so much a question. I just, Anne-Marie, I wanted to just kind of, sum up certainly what you just said. I think the tremendous amount of good, and I think out of a tragic set of events, and obviously a recognition that, either at the surface or below the surface, some really bad things were happening to people, not just ones that resulted in people's deaths, but certainly in degradation of human beings, of all ages, and trafficking of individuals, and that the locations were certainly relevant to that activity in this community, maybe elsewhere. And I think out of that, though, it's kind of the adage of taking lemons and making lemonade, recognizing that this community and family members and law enforcement lost officers, in a tragic set of events. But in addition to that, there have been some real, bad things that happened. But out of that, I think over the last 3 years, and certainly the work that your office and, in concert with the partners and our community partners in being able to provide some resources that address some of the core issues, but also then having a property owner and a business here in this community, but obviously one that has a presence, statewide and nationally, that has, found a better way and, become a strong link in the chain, I think, to, basically combat human trafficking, but all of it goes with nefarious activities on properties that are, kind of left to their own devices, not properly managed and overseen. And so I just think that your efforts, certainly that of you and your staff, I know that you recognized some of your folks here today, but I think all the partners and those community partners that really are making a difference. And, those stories, we could probably spend a day or two in these chambers just reciting some of the good that's coming out from the organizations that you recognize here this morning, and certainly have, found the opportunity to provide some funding that supports those ongoing positive activities. So I want to just commend you certainly for your leadership and all the partners, many who've already left the chambers, but that work's so important. And I would hope that over time, recognizing that this is the the final funding cycle under that particular MOU, but that we can find ways to continue to partner and, again, not necessarily coming out of a negative situation, but ways to support one another and to really, I think, advance the cause for, dignity and respect for, human life in all its different forms, but also that, I think, cooperative relationship between law enforcement and our community nonprofit partners, but certainly the broader community, and making a difference. So thanks for your work. And again, I think it's been a tremendous way to take $750,000 and to use it wisely, but also know that it's done a great deal of good in this community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Frost?
Anne Marie, I just wanted to commend and thank your community prosecution unit. That team has been so helpful to all of us, and for their ability to think outside the box and come up with solutions that no one would think of. They're amazing, and we really appreciate them.
Thank you very much for
Appreciate
that.
you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cerna?
So I'm just going to pile on with gratitude.
It's okay, keep going. We're good.
I do want to thank you, Madam DA, for this very thoughtful work, and I think you can tell by the cross-section of the organizations that are benefiting that it covers a wide breadth of different services, has a wide breadth of kind of geographic influence in different parts of the county. So you can kind of tell on its face that a lot of very deliberate thought was applied here to make sure that these much appreciated but still fairly scarce resources, when compared to other counties that may not have this opportunity, are putting these dollars to great use. And I want to particularly note Natalia Luna, who's up in the cheap seats there. She's been extremely helpful educating me and my staff on this program and how well it's being executed. So thanks to both of you.
Thank you very much for that.
I guess I would just say also thank you for this. Immediately on your conversations with the management of Motel 6, the general managers of the Motel 6s in my district started showing up at my community meetings, wanting to know how they could become part of the community, and we talked about some of the activities you've asked them to engage in. So it was very helpful. In addition to all the good it's doing for the organizations you're bequesting money to, it's been a great thing. And I love all my community prosecutors too. So thank you for that program. I have one speaker signed up, although I think he just left the room. So I'll call him Richard Alexander III.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We need to adopt the resolution. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, for item 61, you are acting as the Board of Supervisors and Sacramento County Water Agency. This is the status of the initial environmental assessment being conducted for a proposed floodfight barrier project on Lambert Road to protect the Point Pleasant community.
Good morning, Michael Peterson, Department of Water Resources. On August 22nd, your board heard a discussion of a potential Lambert Road barrier, temporary barrier.
Mr. Peterson, could you wait just for a second?
Sure.
It's pretty noisy.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right. On August 22nd, 2017, your board heard a discussion on the potential for placing a temporary barrier on Lambert Road. The intent of that barrier would be to prevent flood flows moving from south to north over Lambert Road and into the Point Pleasant community. The board identified that there would be some potential benefits that could be explored from that project, so staff was directed to initiate the CEQA process for a temporary Lambert Road barrier. So that kicked off an initial study, and along with that, staff had prepared a hydraulic study to support it. The model for the initial study identified a potential reduction of 0.6 of a foot, or about 7 inches, within, I think, the southern portion of the Point Pleasant community. The model did also identify potential increases downstream along reclamation district levees of up to 10 inches. This is downstream to the south of Lambert Road. The model was reviewed by an independent consultant, and During the public comment period, we did receive a number of comments from reclamation districts concerned with the additional water surface impacts, or impacts of the levees from the higher water surface elevations that the study identified. And in order to proceed, based on that, those impacts were identified as significant. To move forward, we would need to carry out some further study, including some geotechnical work, and try to specifically identify the location of potential impacts from this increased water surface elevation, as well as the actual means to mitigate those impacts. Staff's done an estimate based on their experience with other consultant studies that is, in round numbers, at $1 million for that significant level of study. I think that that's probably a bracket that somewhere within that range is likely. But regardless, it would be a significant cost to proceed with those studies. The barrier, if deployed, would be during times when there's an expectation of high flows coming from the south, from Snodgrass Slough, the Cosumnes River, and if there was anticipation that was going to take place, that's when the consideration for placing the barrier would occur. The sources of flooding in Point Pleasant are numerous, and we've discussed this previously at the board. It's a speculative situation to determine, is it the right time to place the barrier? What will it do? Is the flow going to come from the north instead of the south? So there's a number of factors that come into play, and there's no certainty as to how any particular storm is going to affect flows in the area. The barrier, as the study showed, does identify some potential lowering of the water surface elevations in Point Pleasant. It does come with impacts downstream on reclamation district levees on down into San Joaquin County. The barrier would also not provide 100-year protection. It would not change flood insurance status. It would not remap the community. It would be a physical barrier, and it would be intended to be temporary if it were going to be placed. The other focus on flood protection in the community has been pursuing home elevation. And at the time in August of 2017, while staff was directed to proceed with the CEQA process for the Lambert Road barrier, we did also identify that we didn't believe it to be the most viable means to provide flood protection in the Point Pleasant community, and we expressed that we believe home elevation and other modifications that could be made on properties are the best way to secure protection against the 100-year event for any particular property. And staff made that comment and recommendation, and your board did reaffirm that, and that's been an ongoing approach that we've taken. We continue to support that approach. What we're asking today is based on what would be the significant level of cost for the studies, and noting that funding would come from a limited pot of funds set aside for the Beachstone Lakes community. That same pot also being used for on-site improvements. Our recommendation is to cease further activity on pursuing the Lambert Road barrier. We'd like to reaffirm and continue pursuing home elevation as the most viable means to protect homes in Point Pleasant. Now that does not mean that we can control the timing of the release of FEMA grant money, because that has been an issue. We are still hung up in FEMA's process in terms of getting the final approvals for grant monies as far back as 2017. But we do believe that is elevating a home, and we've done it a number of times in the county. It is the most viable means to provide flood protection for any individual property, and we continue to recommend that be the focus in the Point Pleasant community.
Before you go on, Mr. Natoli has a question.
I was going to wait till you got done.
Oh, okay.
Wait till he's done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've got some staff here who could speak to perhaps some technical questions regarding the modeling, but I'd be glad to take any questions.
Mr. Tully?
Good. Thank you, Madam Chair. Michael, thank you for the presentation this morning. I want to just take a moment, and I do have a couple of questions, but I think it's important just from a contextual framework here to kind of set the backdrop. And I also want to preface my comments by thanking certainly Water Resources staff, Cheyenne, and certainly Todd Peterson and Michael, yourself, and others who, again, have, I think, you've worked to bring this back to us based upon the direction you received at the August 2017 meeting. But I think it's important by way of backdrop, and there's some communication. I think there's a letter, Madam Clerk, that we have that I would want to make sure it gets entered in a record. We'll hear from some of the residents in a moment, I trust. But we have a letter from Mr. Georgie on this. And one of the things I think is so very, very important, and it doesn't take away from the complexity of some of the flooding potential in the Point Pleasant and Franklin Pond areas, but I think it goes to what this county approved and allowed to happen upstream, particularly in the area in the Morrison Creek portion that feeds the Point Pleasant community. And it's a question, I guess I will look at council in a moment on this, because as a part of those developments, and no current member of this board, myself included, was here when those initial subdivisions and developments were approved. But that is a part of it. There was downstream impacts that needed to be mitigated for as a part of the environmental certification that this board, under the construct at that time, required. And there were monies collected, and yet here we are 30 years later, we're still talking about flood fight. The flood risk is very, very real. And I guess the question that's been posed, and to me is not clear, that again, you can't undo what's been done. Much of those lands and homes, thousands of them, are now in the city of Elk Grove. But basically, this board, as a part of the environmental process, said that we were going to mitigate for the downstream impacts for the upstream that we controlled with the development. And that's never happened. And here we are now to a point, and it wasn't home elevations that were mentioned, and I think Mr. Georgie pointed this out in his letter, but very clearly, home elevation was not, that wasn't the answer. It was that there was going to be some physical improvements that over time has been looked at, and again, certainly Michael's been a part of those reviews. And it really leaves me perplexed as to how, just because the passage of time and maybe the realities of some of the project feasibility that is no longer feasible for a combination of things, but basically for the impacts that occur for upstream development, this county has not mitigated for that. And what I'm hearing now is that the potential is that we likely never will. And I don't know if there's any legal framework for responding to that, Robin, but I would just turn to you because I know I've sent some correspondence, and this is not a legal question as much as I think is kind of one of the integrity of decision making based upon the environmental documents. And again, it doesn't, you weren't here, and neither were we with respect to that, but how do we address that? Because funding, even with the money in the bank, we haven't done anything.
I would just share that the number of times this issue has come before me in the short time I've been here, and my review of prior county council's review of the legal analysis goes back 100 years. And the question between whether it was a man-made impact or Mother Nature includes many years of projects, many years of levees, going back to the gold rush time and keeping water moving. And so the question continues to be, is it Mother Nature or climate change? And so as each board in its slice of time approves a project for its speculated or scientifically designated impacts, there's not always enough money in that impact plan to make the changes that Mother Nature has caused. Now we've looked at, the total way to take Point Pleasant and make it flood free requires so much money that no small project that's been upstream approved could in any way fund that certainty. And so what have been attempted are the various recommendations to allow homeowners that are increasing, as Mr. Hoppe continues to point out, those increasing incidents, more certainty. But for a decade, insurance has been being paid, and the funds are depleting the ability to make those improvements. So is this board responsible for everything that may happen for a 100-year flood? No.
No.
And can one improvement on Lambert Road stop Mother Nature? What has been indicated in this study is that it may have unintended consequences that are considerably worse. And so with that, we're faced with doing those short-term recommendations as best as staff can recommend at this time.
I just a couple comments. I appreciate your response. Again, we weren't talking about making it flood free, because again, I think it's even in the modeling, the information before this board this morning, recognizing that the consumers has impact, and that impact is certainly folks in the Franklin Pond area, and the upstream, the pushback from the congestion at the point of confluence of McCollum and Snodgrass Slough. But I think the other point here, and again I think it was the point of my asking the question, is that it wasn't so much making it flood free as the question that's been posed and what's before us now was to allow them to flood fight. And we know, and in fact even in the public meetings that we had as a kind of precursor to what we have before us today, and Michael was there, as was I, and some of the residents that are here, that we know that folks, when there is a potential for flood, and whether they be an organized reclamation district or they be folks on public lands or on private lands, they flood fight. And the request has been for many, many years, and that's what was before this body last summer in 2017, was whether on the public road, whether the county and or some other entity could flood fight. And we grant permits, encroachment permits, to District 1002, and they were poised the last time around to flood fight on Franklin Boulevard, a public road. On Tyler Island, again, in a defensive mode, they, along their levees, again, raised them temporarily with wave barriers and such, and reinforced them, and it happened all up and down the Delta. And yet, we, as a county, will not and have not either taken on the aspect of either assisting with the flood fight or giving an encroachment to someone to do that. Recognize there are liabilities, and it's been obviously analyzed in this model. And I'll just say that's a real frustration, because even in the environmental document, we talk about 27 structures. We're talking about people's homes. In some cases, even in 2016, 17, multiple occasions of flooding. And here we are today, and again, I appreciate the work that's gone into this, but we haven't raised, since we left this in August 2017, there's not been one house raised by virtue of any assistance we provided in the Point Pleasant area. That's been offered and proffered for many, many years. Again, there's been work on a FEMA grant. We don't control that. We have money sitting that we say we would make available to folks. And I want to cite this for my colleagues, because, and folks can speak for themselves, but they happen to be in the audience today. I had a chance to talk with folks just in the lobby by chance, who, again, were interested in raising their home. Not necessarily because they saw it was the best option for Point Pleasant, but because they recognize the realities of what flooding means to them and their property. And they're just completely frustrated because, one, we don't have the monies available, but secondly, getting a hold of engineers that will do it, and the rising construction costs, and then the practicalities of raising houses in those areas. This is, you've got these rural settings where you have wells and septics and other out structures, as we've talked about many times, that will still remain, including decks and other pertinent structures too. And so, basically they're just throwing their hands up. So we offer that as being some sort of a solution individually, but maybe in the greater sense of collectively, and we've done zero. Not that we haven't worked on it. Again, and Michael and I talked about this yesterday, and that is just very disappointing to me. That's an understatement, because We offered that. Now we're here before us with a recommendation that don't pursue this because it's going to cost X amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars, $1 million to look at it, and recognizing that even if you do an environmental document, you still get into this whole discussion about downstream impacts. But the county has been a contributing factor to this. We don't control the Cosumnes River, and we don't control what happens downstream in the McCollum, but we certainly control development upstream, and still do, and to the degree that it's in the unincorporated area of the county. And I think this whole discussion about flood fight and not allowing a community to flood fight, when we know it's coming, and then to sit there and to allow them repetitively be flooded. I guess the last thing I would just add on this, because I think it's relevant, and I want to ask Michael a question, but is that over the years, again, these houses were all built back in the 1800s. The houses have been built in the 60s and the 70s and even more recently. And the county with best information available is the one that sets the floor elevations. And we set floor elevations based upon what we know at the time. But even with us certifying that those houses would be above the floodplain, now a lot of those folks have been mapped into the floodplain, but they're houses, and so now we're houses that were 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 feet above elevation of base floor. Now we're talking, because of what the state's done with the levees, that they're decertifying the levees along the Sacramento River. Now we're talking about 21-foot elevations, potentially, or higher. And I just think, again, for folks in a rural community that was established 160, 170 years ago, and everything around them, including levees downstream, including development upstream, and obviously the laws of nature, uncontrolled rivers and so forth, has put them in this bathtub and it made them a detention basin for the county of Sacramento, at least in part. And not allowing folks to flood fight, to me, and again, I still take great exception to that, and did in August of 2017 and will again today, recognizing we don't have unlimited funds. And so I guess, Michael, a question I want to ask of you is that relative to the house elevation program, we're waiting for FEMA. God knows, with all the disasters that have occurred nationally in the last 2 years since we visited this, I don't know where we are in a line. You can probably tell me that. But secondly, some folks either gave up on us and or they raised their houses at great expense, and they're not going to be interested. I mean, they fixed their houses. They didn't raise their houses. They fixed their houses, and we had ladies in tears and gentlemen, at point of tears as well before us after those floods. And outside of some technical advice and some work that we've done internally, nobody has realized anything out of that program. And so I guess, where do you see us going? You say today in the recommendation that cease any more work on the flood fight barrier, and we're going to continue to pursue the home elevation program. And again, that requires a willing, obviously, property owner. But secondly, it has a lot of, I think, drawbacks. It may have the potential of taking the structure, the home, out of the floodplain. So where do you see this going? I mean, today you would say we would terminate that. I don't know what the prospects are. We're going to be in the middle of winter here very shortly.
Well, home elevation, you could consider it has drawbacks, or it is not a complete fix to a particular property, as you said, wells and there's outbuildings and things like that. Primary concern for from a risk perspective is the home, the structure, because that's what you need to go back to. In terms of the barrier, it's an understanding that the benefits of the project are limited to a certain set of conditions.
Right.
That barrier on Lambert Road, if flow is coming from the north, that's actually going to hinder flow from leaving Point Pleasant, depending on the situation. So that the decision to place a barrier is itself it's speculative. Does it make sense to do it now? It's a sort of a crystal ball.
You
have to make a call. But if we're going to do that formally, then we're obligated to identify those impacts, and if they reach a certain level, to mitigate them. And that's what the process has identified. It's our recommendation, because we're not a flood fight agency. The county is not. We don't have staff to flood fight.
Right.
We're not a reclamation district. This area is outside of our stormwater utility. We do have staff to go down there to address Lambert Road regardless. to allow community to flood fight on an individual basis, we continue to provide sandbags down in the community. People can protect their individual structures. The idea of implementing a flood fight on Lambert Road, again, as you mentioned, it comes with the liabilities, it comes with the risk, it comes with exposure. Is the board willing to continue pursuing that, knowing what that could contain? And there really is the limitation on the fundings that we have available, at least through the pots of money that have been established. Doesn't mean that there are maybe some other way to get additional funding. Is that one going to be the best way to spend that money long term? And does it take away from the ability to help other properties in the Point Pleasant community? It's not again, just like any house elevation, it's not 100% complete
protection.
It provides it to a certain point.
Right. That's been recognized, and it doesn't
right.
save all structures. But why do you think it's going to take $1 million or $1.5 million to do? And you've done some pretty good modeling thus far.
Right. We had this peer reviewed. We had an independent consultant look at it based on the impacts that were identified and how we would have to address them. Not only identify the scale of impact further, but how do you mitigate those impacts? We have to determine, the nature of the levees that are being impacted. That's potentially a lot of work that could, as staff estimate, up to $1 million. As I said, that's a bracket, but clearly it's a significant cost, and that the use of that funding for a project that. It's not the ultimate flood protection project versus elevation. It doesn't cut off the 100-year flow. It addresses only one situation. Our recommendation is that to not continue to pursue that. We're going to dig into that pot, which is also being used to carry through the insurance costs that we're reimbursed.
I guess the irony in all of this, and then we can hear from speakers, but is that one, others can flood fight when the high waters come, and in this case, whether it's us or somebody else, can't flood fight, and that we're being held to the same standard that this board in its construct then, but certainly over the years of mitigating for impacts. And having to analyze those, the analysis was clear. I mean, that document, and I appreciate the planning department providing it, pointed out that there were net downstream impacts to the development. Again, it didn't inundate, but a matter of inches or feet makes a big difference, and that's what's being said in the modeling analysis for the downstream. But this county allowed development to proceed and said we were going to mitigate. We didn't mitigate. And now we're being held to that same standard to look at this, that, the law hasn't changed in that regard. And that to me is ironic, because it says that, we can stop this now because the expense is so great and we're going to have to look at the mitigation for downstream. I get it. That's the law, and we would need to do that. But what was done 30 years ago, and even subsequent to that, because of developments that were approved and so forth, the county of Sacramento really has, and now city of Elk Grove and the cities upstream in the Morrison Basin, don't mitigate, whatever those impacts are. There is some mitigation for pulling, peak flows off, but we don't mitigate for the volumes and, and how it moves, and neither does the city of Sacramento. I mean, there are detention basins as such, so that may help some. But the bottom line is that those impacts were never mitigated for, even though they were identified. This body, certified that we would, and we didn't. Not that we're not attempting to raise houses. And so that's not lost on me. It's not lost on the residents. And again, you're not going to change that. And we may be empowered to change some of that, but that really eats at me, because I think it really puts people in a very desperate situation, recognizing that in flood insurance, we're dependent upon FEMA and this and that and this and that. And meanwhile, folks try to live their lives to protect their property values and their homes in times of flood, but anytime the values, and they're just put at more of a disadvantage, and then the state comes along and decertifies the levees. And I have very little faith that maintenance area 9, everybody's going to do anything for those levees, because they're not in the urban setting. And so it just puts them further in the hole because we have to map houses in at 20, 21 feet or whatever it is. And so I don't know. I just, again, I find it terribly ironic and I find it terribly disappointing. So that's what I have to say thus far. Maybe hear from some folks.
Thank you. We do have two speakers. Tracy Slavin and then Walter Hoppy.
Good morning.
Morning, Tracy.
My name's Tracy Slavin. I live on Point Pleasant Road in the Point Pleasant area. Our house was constructed in 1935, relatively new, and has never been flooded since that time, thank God. I have a few comments regarding and questions regarding the environmental requirements related to the Elliott Ranch EIR. Email correspondence between Mr. Walter Hoppy and Ms. Leanne Moffett with Sacramento County dated August 3rd, 2018 indicates that the obligation under the Elliott Ranch Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program has been satisfied as both funds have been established and that the County Floodplain Management Agency is obligated to expend those funds under the direction of the Board of Supervisors. However, according to CEQA guidance, the intent of an MMRP is to ensure compliance with mitigation measurements during project implementation. In the same email, Ms. Moffett states that the Elliott Ranch MMRP was transferred to the city of Elk Grove in 2014 upon the city's incorporation. The project that is being proposed by Sacramento County Water Resources is to elevate houses and fund other home-specific measures that would reduce flooding impacts to homeowners. Since this project was not specifically identified in the Elliott Ranch EIR, is there other environmental document that would cover this proposed action? Also, is there or will there be an MMRP that monitors the implementation of these proposed actions? And finally, how would the city of Elk Grove be involved in the administration of this or other MMRPs related to the Elliott Ranch Mitigation Project, especially since funds are managed by Sacramento County and the project is located outside the city limits? So I would.
Thank you. We'll have
ask that
someone answer
staff
that
would-
after all the speakers are finished.
Okay.
Thank you. Walter Hoppy.
Morning, Walt.
Chair, member of the board, Walter Hoppy, 11556 Fogg Road. I've been here a few times before. I don't really like to be here, and I think Supervisor Natoli made a good point. This has been going on for, well, he's been involved for about 30 years, and actually they recognized this problem way in the early 1960s. I just have a few questions. I certainly don't have time to go over all of my concerns, so I just have some questions about today's recommended action. It states in number 2 that other property-specific flood protective measures previously authorized by the board were before the board today. The property-specific flood protective measures authorized by the board on June 6, 2018 in a hearing, but I don't think the results of that hearing were that those projects were authorized. And I think we should clarify that. If the, I have to go back to that. There were 4 things that were looked at that day: home raising by raising the foundation, home elevation on fill, flood wall berm, and venting. the only thing we've talked about since that time is home elevation by raising the foundation. The other 3 items have not been discussed in any of the discussion with the folks out there. If that is part of the program, I think that needs clarification and by the board. On page 4 of your recommendations, it talks about $4.6 million as the balance in the Beachstone Lake Fund. I have a June 30th, 2018 balance that shows something over $8 million in there. And this $4.6 million is only 2 of the 4 funds, and I question why only 2 of the 4 funds would be used for mitigation. And in one of the funds, 315X shows an ongoing drainage permit fee, which adds every year to the fund. What is the basis for this fee, considering there is no identified project? How can you set a fee if you don't have a project to gauge that fund? I believe, in our communications, we talked about a $315 per unit fee way back in the 1990s. And I believe that has been moved over to Zone 40. Is that correct?
No.
Where does the money that comes into 315X come from now?
Mr. Hoppe, if you would address the board, and then staff will answer your questions afterwards. I wanted to ask you, have you already talked to staff about your questions?
Not all of them, no, not these.
Okay, so I wondered if you'd received answers on any of them.
No.
Okay.
Okay. In a letter to County Council dated October 16th, they state the County Floodplain Management Agency is obligated to expand those funds under the direction of the board. Tracy brought that up, obligated. What does that mean? It's been 30 years, and I don't understand what the word obligated means. And I also don't understand what the County Floodplain Management Agency is. I've never heard of that agency before. So I'll close with a final statement. I suggest that this hearing be postponed until a full and complete review of the history of the flood problem, past environmental commitments, the MMRP responsibility, Board of Supervisors actions, and other related issues are addressed. An environmental review under CEQA should be conducted for today's recommended actions, the home elevation, and other property-specific protective measures. Issues such as access for safety vehicles, damage to property other than elevated homes, water contamination, farm animal issues, mandatory evacuation during time of flood, loss of property value, and yet unidentified issues should be considered during that review. Another thing that should be considered is flowage easements. Our area was not in the floodplain under undeveloped
Mr. Hoppe,
condition.
you're at 5 minutes, so
Okay.
if you could make your final wrap-up, that would be terrific.
That's good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Don, do you have another question, or was that left over from?
No, I had some comments after we heard from, is that all the folks we had to hear?
No, totally then.
Thank you. The reference that Mr. Hoppe made was to the June 2017 memo that had actually report to the board that, I don't know if it was circulated in materials, but we received it June 6th of last year that talked about the home elevation, the flood wall berm, and the venting. And again, I guess it was taken by staff that was, you were going to proceed unless you heard otherwise. Is that I want to be
Correct.
clear about that, Michael?
Correct.
Okay. And then maybe you could just provide some clarification, and I do have a question, but about the funding, because I thought there was more than $4.6 million.
No, Mr. Hoppe's correct. That's the error in the staff report.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what is the amount that?
It's somewhere in the neighborhood of $8 million. I don't have the specific
Okay.
figure right in front of me.
So just if I could, so while Michael said that was error in the staff report that it's not just 4.6 million, it is closer to $8 million that's available, and he just corrected that on the record. I wanted to be sure that was, because that was my understanding, that's the amount of money. I think that, if I could, just for a moment, Madam Chair, that you know, we go round and round, and meanwhile we do offer, you know, this home elevation approach, but I think the questions that, and maybe there aren't answers. I appreciate Robin giving, you know, at least some overview this morning to my question, but I think it's important because, you know, the settlement around this, and I think this issue of flowage easements, it was talked about in the past. It hasn't been talked about any time in recent, but where folks do have impacts, that could be a mitigation. It was mentioned in the environmental document in 1989, 88, 89, and that doesn't come out without a cost, but it recognizes that folks are going to be impacted by flooding periodically or you know, or otherwise, that, you know, there's some compensation for that. And we, you know, that's not a method that hasn't been used in the past. I don't know, this county's used it very frequently. And so I guess what I would ask is that before we just leave this topic and figure this is going to be the last time we're gonna see it, is to, again, without revisiting all of the history, but to actually talk about, you know, where we might, again, really provide some mitigation. And that doesn't mitigate for the flooding, but it compensates people for the impacts of flooding, a flowage easement. And, you know, how we might get there. We don't have unlimited dollars, and we are, you know, helping with the flood insurance, but I, for one, would like us to take a look at that and to come back and provide an answer to the questions. I think they're on the record. I see the correspondence. I know that Robin gets it, Nav gets it from me. Some of it gets responded to, others, you know, doesn't. But the bottom line is, this is the context by which those dollars are ultimately governed, and any approach that we take, that we sanction by unanimous vote or otherwise, for expenditure of those dollars. And so before we just, you know, leave this entirely and say we're not going to do the floodplain barrier because of the dollars involved, we're not going to do the environmental analysis, and we're going to pursue home elevation or these four things that are outlined in the June 6, 2017 memo, I'd like to have a little fuller discussion. And again, you know, it's certainly up to this board, but you know, you might lose patience with this at some point in time, but people live with this every day. And I think that, you know, recognizing some of the history that we ought to, before we just kind of put this behind us and say it's home elevation and the money will be there, and this board will time to time visit what we do with the home elevation program or the flood insurance program if rates continue to increase. And I think another strategy, I would just add this, I guess, lastly, that, you know, I don't know where the state's going to go with their decertification levies, but I hold out little hope of that. But if we ever want to see these communities, you know, have an opportunity to prosper in the future, and maybe to have a new home constructed from time to time, assuming that, you know, meets zoning requirements and so forth, you know, there needs to be some settlement around, you know, what the elevation is and how that fits down there. And, you know, obviously people have an assumed risk, but it is an agricultural area, and it's an area that's, you know, close to development. It's never going to be developed, I don't believe, because it does have, you know, some flood impacts. But to say to folks that, you know, your only option is to raise your homes or pay the insurance, or when the money runs out, the county's obligation is done and over with. And that, to me, leaves people, I think, you know, pretty empty, both in hand but also in heart and mind. And so I'm going to ask that we, you know, continue this matter today to, you know, see if we can get answers to the questions. Some of them may be of a legal framework, others may be more of a practical framework, but I would like to, again, and not to delay unduly, but to come back sometime after the first of the year, if my colleagues agree, and to have this discussion about flowage easements, about some of the things that have been raised here before we just put this one behind us, because I think that, you know, it may be at rest until the next high water comes, and then it'll be back before us. So I'd like us to take a look at it. That's my thought.
Mr. Slavin asked some questions too that I was hoping you could respond to.
In terms of the CEQA document or EIR for home elevation, it's our understanding that that kind of a project would fall under the category of a categorical exemption on an individual basis. So that project we brought forward, that's the level of environmental analysis. That was based on a discussion with council, but I don't know if there's anyone from PERS here could speak to that, but that's my understanding. In I think there was a question regarding the property-specific measures. We have discussed venting and berms and other similar non-elevation type approaches to properties. We first brought that to the community, I think 15 years ago or so. And we do actually have a candidate who's waiting now to install some venting in their house. We're drafting up an agreement with council to have that follow through. The 315X funds, those are held in Zone 11 of the Water Agency on the drainage side. They're not in Zone 40, which is the water supply side. The flow easements is something that we can certainly look at if it becomes, if it's something that is a payment for the allowance of waters to pass through. That's going to speak to an ongoing cost, just like the insurance. And in the long term, how is that sustained? That's one question that we would have to answer. But we can look at that again. As you mentioned, it was considered some number of years ago. And I think. I don't know that we're ever going to be able to settle on what a floodplain elevation is. I think that's an acknowledged frustration with between dealing with the state and the federal agency in floodplain management and regulation. That elevation is always subject to change, and we are obligated to use the best available information. But that information is subject to revision over time, and it generally doesn't get lower, unfortunately.
Could I just ask a quick question on that? So if we once raised a house, say somebody took advantage of a program 10 years ago and raised it to 16 or 17 or 18 foot elevation, and so an action comes in, are they only eligible one time to raise the house under the FEMA program?
Most likely, because of the having to meet benefit cost requirements. Yeah. Once it's been elevated, it likely wouldn't qualify based on the criteria of a FEMA grant.
So they're never really safe from that prospect anyway. I mean, they might be safer because they're a higher elevation, i.e., or the structure is better protected.
And that is the case anywhere that we have approved development. It's adjacent to a floodplain, or it may be built to high, but there's always a potential for that floodplain to change, to increase. Whether real or from a regulatory standpoint.
Does that complete your comments?
Yes.
I wondered if we could maybe provide a little bit more specificity about next steps on this. The recommendation, in today's item is to cease activity on the specific project, right? And the discussion has been to continue that item and then to look at other issues. So I think it would be very helpful if we could clarify what those additional issues would be and the framework that the intention would be to bring that back, just so we can keep stuff on the right thing. And further, I guess I would like to confirm that additional action on the proposed project, which was today's item, the flood barrier or flood fight barrier, that it be clear that any additional activity on that is ceased. In other words, we're not continuing to progress that unless for some reason this board is recommending that we do, because the basis of today's discussion had been that really doesn't appear to be the right expenditure or use or solution out here for all the reasons that were documented. And we're now continuing that to answer some additional questions. I want to just see what we could do to bring some clarity to that so that when the item is brought forward next, that we could be responsive to try and continue to move the item forward. So.
I wanted to make a comment just about elevated houses. I don't have a list of issues for you to address, but if you look at flooding situations around the United States, I used to think elevating houses was not a very good solution, but that is the solution. When you look at the Atlantic seaboard and the Gulf of Mexico and the floods they have from hurricanes and other climate events, those houses are all raised, and they still have plenty of value left in them because all the houses are raised. And so it's become more of a moved into the it makes sense to me category, rather than, and I'm not familiar with how long it takes to get the money from FEMA and what the requirements are there, but I do think elevation is the answer, rather than man-made engineering projects that corral the water and move it here and there and have effects on other homeowners in the area. Do you have any comments?
Well, Madam Chair, maybe just in response to Mr. Penrose's seeking sort of clarification on direction, and I wouldn't disagree with you that raising houses certainly is a viable option. I think that we've offered this for a number of years.
It's a viable option, and it can happen quickly, rather than 30 years that this argument, or whatever the number is, this argument's been going on.
Of course, we're right in the heat of it with, and again, none of us control the FEMA, distribution of monies and whatever requires to qualify for that. But, 2 years ago, when we had folks before us and, houses had water in them at that point in time, we were going to move. And we have funding available. We've already said we can make those loans through local sources. And so I don't know what it is we could do to advance that. Maybe that's part of the report back, because again, we didn't want to get too far out ahead. Recognize you could couple our money with the federal dollars, but the fact that we haven't done any, I didn't know about the venting. That's good news, I guess, that we're working with a landowner there. I would like to see us, though, on flowage easements and maybe taking a different approach. I guess I'm going to offer this as a suggestion that in my conversation that I outlined a little earlier with some of the folks down there, maybe we ought to have a resident engineer assigned that could help advance the projects. I mean, that was one of the frustrations that was expressed. They went to the private marketplace. We're not the engineer for the contractor, but they were either told, well, we don't do that work. We're not really interested in that work. I'll take your information and get back to you a year later and then get back. And so folks just, they give up on it. And so it would seem to me that if that's one of the things that we're going to, and this board, and again, I've even said it previously and have supported making that one of the available options, and then we ought to maybe be more real about that. It's not just the, standard program that, we have this situation that obviously this board's grappled with on many occasions, that, how do we really help make it happen? If people are interested and willing, recognizing they may still be seeking other options for us to consider, then I think that may be part of what we bring back. And I've talked with Michael a bit about this, Mike, and mentioned to Nav yesterday too. I don't know if that helps or not, but it may help some, because again, we're not penniless here, and I think if we're going to offer that as an option, then we ought to, try to help make it happen. We're not raising the house for folks. I don't think that's the position we want to be in, but we certainly can help advance it to the folks, to the point where folks actually know they got the money available to them to do the work that would be agreed upon with them and their contractor. And I think that.
So you're looking for a program out of the funds that have already been collected to raise the houses?
Yeah,
what you're saying?
Yeah, and we've authorized that. Yeah, but we haven't used it. I mean, because we're waiting for federal dollars, and so but also, yeah, I know. And that's part of it. And I think the missed opportunity, and again, recognizing the one lady was before us was in the Franklin Pond, so these monies wouldn't have been applied for that. The FEMA money would have helped. But, $200,000 later and all the grief that they've gone through, they're not going to visit raising their house. I wouldn't imagine they would want to do that. But there are others who may want to. And I think the idea of flowage easements, recognizing that we have a portion of the impact, people might be able to grade that, but it's not ongoing. I think if you take an easement, there's an acquisition of the right to allow water to pass. And if that's something that people were interested, we ought to add that to the list. I don't know what it would cost, how far the money would take us, but it doesn't solve the flooding of the house, but it also recognizes that there's an impact, and I would trust that it's a way to mitigate for that, assuming that it was talked about, obviously, in environmental documents. So I'd like to have us take a look at that, if we could.
Okay.
How many flowage easements, how many property owners would you be talking to?
I'll put it in terms of how many properties that we pay flood insurance. I believe it's around 128 properties that
128?
That we pay insurance for, which is in itself a mitigation. So it would be in that.
Why would someone want to allow water to? I mean, I don't understand why.
If it's already in the floodplain, this is a way to, as I'm understanding it, to provide some mitigation in terms of compensation for the fact that water will be flowing on these properties. That's my understanding of the purpose of the flowage easement.
Do you have to have all 128 agree, or it's a no-go?
You take easements one property at a time. So not everybody, an easements can be specific to a particular parcel. So you could get it on one parcel and not on another if you don't get agreement.
And does that do any good then?
It is a means of compensating, of providing mitigation through compensation because of the water being on the property.
They recognize the impacts going forward as well as the ones that, how you tailor that, you'd obviously have to do some work behind that. Obviously, there are different levels of impact depending upon the elevations of properties and where they sit east or west of I-5, south of Lambert Road and such, but or Kestrel Lake and so on. So, but I would think there's a way to do that practically, and again, it's agreed upon by the parties. I mean, it might go hand in hand with home elevation too. I don't know. I mean, again, I just think that otherwise we're kind of stuck where we're at, and
I think we are stuck where we're at. I mean, home elevation sounds like what we need to be pursuing, and I think having someone from this department maybe assigned to harass FEMA to get the money, if that's the question.
We do have somebody assigned to harass FEMA, and he is harassing FEMA on a regular basis, and dealing with, communicating with the community members. Trying to facilitate contractors and house movers who are the ones that elevate the homes, short of us creating our own design firm and contracting firm to actually do the work. Staff is engaged as much as possible to facilitate that, but there are certain certain factors in terms of interest in that kind of work, availability of contractors in particular. This is the second year where we've had, contractors pulled out of the area.
Well, why would the county engage in construction and elevation? Wouldn't that be a...
I'm not suggesting that we do. I'm just saying, short of doing that, there's only so much we can do to push a contractor to get this, get involved and get interested in doing this kind of work.
But if you find out that there's 20 homeowners that need it, I mean, that provides
Certainly.
an economic impetus to a contractor.
And it's known that this work is here. The difficulty is getting people interested to do it because there's other work that they have available that's likely easier, and that's sort of the nature of the market. But we can circle back on this and see, is there another way that we can provide some more impetus to get the contracting community interested in responding to this work without the county taking on the liability of being the constructor.
One other suggestion I would like to offer, and again, it may goes to this flowage easement question, because there is the downstream portion of this. It's what happens upstream, but then the downstream. And we've had the conversation in these chambers about McCormick Williamson, the breach there, obviously, that could provide some level of relief. What might happen on Staten, which continues to be a big question mark. But if we have dollars available that could go to dedicated projects, it would seem to me that maybe if we entered in some conversation about maybe a flowage easement over those islands will flood from time to time, but obviously people have crops on them. There are other infrastructure, towers and such. But maybe that's another thing. You buy some relief there. You buy, we paid $400,000, at least put it up for contract with TNC to keep that open in 17, that breach. So maybe that's what we look at bringing to the table, is some dollars that would then lower the flood elevation, or at least the impacts at times of high water, and, buy an easement. Again, it would be additive. TNC runs the one state, and I guess there's a dispute right now about what happens at Staten, but or at least discussions about who may. So again, that would buy some relief. Does it answer all the questions? No, because the consumers still, poses a big threat. But I guess I would ask, Madam Chair, that might be something we've had the discussions at the time of the floods with the Nature Conservancy and others about McCormick Williamson, and I thank them for keeping that repair to a lower level that would provide some relief if we had high waters again this season. But maybe there's a way to look at that would compensate for that consideration. If we've got $8 million available to us, it might be viable. So I guess I'd like to have us take a look at that too, because would at least go to part of it. And again, certainly Walton, Tracy, and others could weigh in on that. But I think that might be one way. We've never really talked about doing that kind of over the long term. We did it with the one breach and the offer. Did we pay the $400,000 out?
No.
That was an agreement to keep it open. So, which bought some.
It was in the event it's inundated.
Right.
We would help contribute to the.
So maybe there's an ability to, up the ante in our discussions and look at doing that and buying that long-term relief, which would then have an obligation goes with that property, and we would know that at least we get something for the value of that. So I think it warrants our further consideration.
We can try to identify if there's any additional downstream work that can be done that we could get cooperation with state or other property owners or other, nonprofit agents, whoever it might be. That likely is going to come again with its own environmental analysis that's required. We did approach the CalFed program a number of years ago to try to tag on the Lambert Road project to theirs, and they rebuffed.
Right.
So we have approached that before. We can take another look at that again.
Well, that was the 11F component.
Right.
But I do think that, with McCormick Williamson in Staten Island, that you may have an opportunity there because they are in play to some degree, and we're not controlling it, but if we brought some money to the table, again, we have to vet it with the community and certainly see how it might work, but I'd like to take a look at that as well.
Well, if we're going to do that, then we really need to narrow the focus from this staff report, I think, and reaffirming that home elevation, other property-specific protective measures are the ones that we want to pursue, and then abandon the efforts on the EIR. But that doesn't mean we can't continue or have a conversation with the Nature Conservancy and look at possibly some of the flowage easements and continue to work with FEMA. I mean,
correct, and I think we'll also need
those
to bring.
are my thoughts.
And I think we would also need to bring back the discussion of the longevity of the funding in regards to sustaining the flood insurance as the flood insurance is continuing to increase. I think that just needs to be.
I mean, it may be that not everyone wants to elevate their home. They're willing to go through the occasional flooding, and so maybe we ought to look at how far our funds would go if we funded the whole thing outside of FEMA. But I think those are the issues we ought to stick to, and as you mentioned, abandon the discontinue further consideration of the EIR and affirm the home elevation is the right way to go.
I think it's a good point to make, that it doesn't limit us from exploring those other.
Then you come back. I don't know about the first of the year because you're going to you need some time to discuss the flowage easement and the Nature Conservancy efforts, that kind of thing. So that'd be my motion.
Ma'am, okay. Can I ask Mr. Hoppy to come to the podium before we vote on the motion?
Okay.
If I could, please. Thanks.
Could I bother you just for 1 minute? I think something else that has to be looked in here. Supervisor Peters talks about raising houses in mainly urban areas, but it's recognized that when a storm comes, they make everyone evacuate. And in our area, it's a rural area, and I have 50 head of cattle there. And if you raise my house and make no facilities for the other animals, what am I supposed to do? I've got to evacuate all my animals, and I'm certain that the Office of Emergency Services is going to tell us to evacuate. So we're going to have to evacuate that whole area because it's unsafe. You cannot access safety equipment in there, fire or medical, once that water's 4 or 5 feet deep. So we're going to have lot of notice so that we can get all of this stuff out of there. And how are we we're going to have to maybe live for a couple of months in a motel. We don't get compensated for that or all these other related costs. So I would like, that to be considered, some kind of an emergency evacuation plan and some kind of notification. I guess it's easy enough to give us notification, but it isn't so hard to move 50. There's probably 1,000 head of cattle in that floodplain right now that have to be, if the flood was coming, would have to be evacuated. It's not a easy thing to do. And then all the equipment other than the house and the barns and all that stuff gets damaged, and there's no compensation for that. So just to raise a house is only part of the issue. Thank you.
Just with the motion before us, because it doesn't include any, again, I acknowledge the chair certainly said that we could have a report back, but I'd like to have that direction into the motion. And I think the point made here.
Well, I'm sorry. I was assuming that the things you mentioned would be in it.
Okay, right. And maybe get a date to come back. It may not be right after the first of the year, but I don't want to see this in the summer of 19. I think we need to be back sooner than that. So if I just could add, I think that the point is well made that, again, some of the inconvenience and costs associated with that, and so maybe there's a way to provide some insurance or assurance as a part of this. We work in a cooperative fashion because, again, it's stated clearly. It's an agricultural area, and folks are pretty hardy and they're pretty self-reliant, self-sufficient. They help each other evacuate and move and so forth. But recognizing if this is going to happen with some frequency, maybe that's part of the mitigation as we take this approach. It doesn't mean there's unlimited dollars, but we built some relationship, obviously, over the years, and I guess I'd like to see us come to a point where, okay, if we're not going to flood fight on Lambert Road, and you maybe elevated your house, but I still got my farm, that, what sort, not just notice, but assistance. Maybe we can, because we can certainly assist people in that regard. There's a cost associated, but we mobilize, we do it all over the county and all over in the communities, and maybe there's a specific plan and approach here that in the event of, we can assist with X, and it's some known factors. I may not have exact cost associated with it, and so maybe we have some funding set aside, and at least I think it keeps good faith, and I'd like to have us take a look at that as a part of this component, and if my colleagues are agreeable to take a look at it. Maybe unique, but it's not an area that's geographically undefined, and I think there are only certain ways in and out, and again, we may be a contributing factor, but maybe we're the party that at least steps up and says we're going to do what we can to assist our residents. And so I'd like to have us take a look at that. It may be unique, but...
Supervisor Tully, I'm sorry, I didn't follow that. You want us to look at what piece?
The piece was suggested here, that in the event of a flooding event...
For us to cover their relocation costs, is that...
What sort of assurance? If it's mobilizing to help folks... evacuate an area, because we've done mandatory evacuations, basically.
No, I understand that. You're talking about just a notification.
No, well, I'm talking about to assist with the evacuation effort. That maybe that you have folks, that livestock movers, emergency response. That you have a plan. It would be adopted. Why would we, again, that can provide mitigation.
No, I'm not trying to argue the point. I'm trying to understand the ask. I didn't quite follow. So it's notification and a system in...
Some defined assistance, defined, and I mentioned some of the opportunities to do that. And it might be, again, through insurance or assurance, but we have, $8 million is not unlimited money, but we have some funding available that could maybe buy an insurance policy. I don't know.
Okay, all right, we'll look into it.
Okay. Again, I'm looking to think outside the box a little bit, because if you just say, well, everybody's on their own, then...
No, I understand that.
I get it,
what you're seeing is I'm just going through... mental calculation, what are the legal constraints and the financial component. And as you know, it's public funds. That's what you're seeing on my face. I'm not saying we're not going to do it, but
emergency response, Ms. Frost said it, where you define, you have a plan, and that we can, it's defined. I think it's worth looking at. We have in other areas that if you have a chemical leak somewhere, that on the freeway, that you evacuate homes, and that
Supervisor, I hate doing this. I don't want to belabor the point, but some of those are very specific on the chemical and.
I'm not okay. Bad analogy then. Okay, don't
I know,
use that.
But I just want to use.
I would offer on Woodside, which is in my district, which is very prone to flooding, that at the beginning of the year, they are called, their property management firm is called to say, water levels are up to this, you need to be prepared.
I just want to make sure that as we take the task, that we're not putting any unrealistic expectation on homeowners that we're going to come with any financial stuff. We'll look at it, we'll make a recommendation back, what the emergency evacuation plan will entail, notification and relocation.
Okay, and so if I could just be analogous to this, though, maybe a better analogy is that we do, recognizing the impacts, we have, assisted with the purchase of flood insurance, and Safeco's been a contributor to that, and we know that there's some costs that are accelerating there. And so that has helped. It doesn't, avoid the suffering or impacts of a flooding, but it certainly provides people the coverage to recover. And so maybe part of this is to look at, before you have to recover, to actually, assist and move, they got to move their furniture to high ground. They help each other. But again, with livestock, there's a cost. They got to move somebody else's dairy to higher ground to get them off in some other. It seems to me that we could, look at a plan that has a defined approach as to how we might do it. It might have some insurance for that. I don't think it's so out of the ordinary. So, in addition to the notice.
The apartments I'm talking about at Woodside and Timberlake, we let them know the water levels are rising at a certain point, and then they have their own plan on how to get out, and knocking on the doors of elders that live nearby or that don't have computers. They've worked all that out themselves. So, 2 more speakers. Mr. Cerna?
Thank you. So to Supervisor Natoli's last point about the prospect of assisting with evacuation, I know you're going to, Mr. CEO, seek the counsel of our attorney on this, but I would caution that if we're going to go down that path, we don't go down that path with regard to just one area of the county. This would have to be a county-wide policy, effort, initiative, however you want to qualify it. And I think to Supervisor Peters' point about the Woodside Apartments, which are have a legacy, unfortunately, of flooding, there are other places, probably, dare I say, in all the 5 supervisorial districts that are prone to flooding. So to avoid the appearance, real or otherwise, of just focusing on how we would apply resources or lend assistance to just one area, I think you'd have to necessarily look at it from a countywide perspective.
Understood.
Yeah, and just to follow on that, Water Resources has those devices in the canals and ditches and other things that measures the level of the water, and that's when the notice goes out. So
that's correct.
It'd be easy to send an email or a reverse 911
we actually
automated
do have that
response.
We do have that in place for Point Pleasant. We do have triggers where messages are put out to the Point Pleasant community. Those were developed by Water Resources several years ago. And the Emergency Services Office also does that reach out through reverse 911 and triggers those notices with Water Resources staff working with OES staff. So that is in place. We can look at refining that to ensure that there's this maximum notice practical without being so early that it becomes the boy who cried wolf type of situation. That's always the concern as well. But we can take a look at refining those trigger elevations for messaging.
Well, they have cameras on them too, and people can watch it on their computer. Ms. Frost?
I thought it was a great idea. What I had in my mind sort of went along with what Supervisor Cerna was saying, but the Office of Emergency Services and Metro Fire and veterinarians and community members, and if there was a way to put together maybe a flood response, but also plan for the community on what they can do to ahead of time to ensure that they're covered. Like they have a plan B, they have the insurance in place, and they know the roads to leave, and that there's volunteers in the community that know that's where they're going to go at that time, that kind of thing. Helping them, not so much funding everything, but helping put together a community plan that will help them respond in the event of a flood?
And Supervisor Frost, absolutely. Our OES does have plans on evacuation. We do drills on it, but I'll make sure, I don't think we have briefed you on it since you come onto the board. That tells you from your district what are the routes that we recommend for folks to get out, the reverse 911 calls, and all the systems we have in place. So I do owe you a briefing on that. I'll make sure that I bring our OES chief to talk about that with you. And any improvements you have, absolutely we'll add on to that.
Is that what you had in mind, Don, or you were asking for beyond that?
Well, again, we have some, language as it relates to mitigation, and we also have funds that are specifically set aside for this area. And so, again, I think to the degree that's been mentioned by all my colleagues here about, what we do in other areas, certainly replicating it here, assuming it's applicable. But also, I think boring a little bit deeper that, if in fact we have specific mitigation funds, and it might even be triggered by certain events. I mean, because again, if it's upstream that we had to mitigate for versus the consumed is, which certainly impacts and floods people, I get that. And so that's, why folks in the Franklin Pond on the east side of Franklin Boulevard aren't qualify for Beach Stolen Lakes funding, because even though they get flooded from the consumed is, and it's just as severe as if they get flooded if you're in Point Pleasant. And so, maybe, again, without being inequitable in the application, but recognizing that we have a specific situation that the county said we would mitigate for at least the upstream, impacts, that, maybe we craft a plan. You get it in a cooperative fashion. It doesn't expose us in liability, doesn't get us out of sequence with other areas, whether it's Woodside or Natomas or anywhere else, but also recognizes some of the uniqueness of this, and that if this is the way it's going to be until whenever, that we can be of an assist, because it could happen again next week if the rain started falling. So again, that's what I like to see. My last question we have a motion before us, but so how soon do you think you could be back to us with at least some further discussion with this, recognizing it may not be right after the first of the year, but could you have it here in March? I think.
I believe so, and if we're not going to make March date, we will communicate.
I think it's important while we're in the winter season. Otherwise, when we're having a hearing in August, it's a little different impact.
It's a different feel, yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, thanks.
Okay. I don't recall if there was a second on the motion.
There was.
There was, okay. If there's no further discussion, please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Okay, the off-agenda speaker that I had has left, and we are going to recess to close session. I'll be back at 2.